Not very much. France, which once had colonies in West Africa, is the only country that is extensively engaged in combating terror in this region. It has deployed close to 5,100 military personnel and is helping local forces in pushing back terrorists. But the rest of the world is doing very little. Why? Because most world leaders are making self-interested calculations when it comes to West Africa. They consider it to be a supposedly distant threat, one that has no bearing on the future security of the rest of the world. So they're busy carrying out airstrikes in Syria. What I'm about to say next could be politically incorrect, but it's time someone said it. Africa may not have the same strategic significance as West Asia right now. It may not have the kind of oil that West Asia has, but it is the continent of the future. It still contributes almost 10% of the global oil output, 90% of the world's platinum supply, 90% of the world's cobalt supply, half of the world's gold supply, 2/3 of the world's manganese, and 35% of the world's uranium. Africa is critical to world economy and security, and terrorists in West Africa are setting up new fronts in failed states while the world is looking the other way. They're expanding in all directions, posing a serious threat to the economic powerhouses in Africa. They could soon control or destroy these resources and hold Africa's economy hostage, the reverberations of which will be felt around the world. And we are putting money as the thrust of this argument because human rights violations have long failed to move the world. So if it all comes down to money, the world should still be worried about what's happening in Africa.
Even the French involvement is also suspicious because they could be supplying weapons to both sides. They could be supplying weapons to both sides. You never know. They did it during the genocidal war of Nigeria and against the Biafrans in 1967, 1970. They were supplying weapons to both sides to keep the fire burning. Nigeria is a country in crisis. Everywhere you go, you see evidence of failed state written all over the country, and there's a lot of disquietness, a lot of disturbance, a lot of insecurity, poverty, bitterness, hatred across the country. In fact, a criminal gang is controlling Southeast right now to the point that they can tell people to stay home for 1 week, and everyone patiently stays home because they know there is nothing out there to protect them. So everyone shuts down their businesses and their daily activities that actually is where they get their daily bread. They let it go because they want to be safe. They don't want to get into trouble. They shut themselves in. I have been on ground here for over a month, and I have seen things that are completely bewildering. I can't even explain it. That people can listen to criminals, gangs, who are going about burning people's businesses, killing people. At Umuch, they killed 2 people last week during the 4-day shutdown, Monday to Thursday, because one of us, an Igbo man, was facing trial at Abuja, Nnamdi Kanu. And they also killed 2 people at Ekulobia. And at Ogad, I understand they used machete to cut 2 people's head. Now, I don't know how this leads to anything near freedom or the realization of the illusionary Biafra they have in mind. But we know where all this is leading to. It's state of anarchy. That's what they're looking for. And they believe that the more they cause trouble, the closer they get to referendum. But let's hear what Kingsley Moghalu had to say about the current state of Nigeria and the hopelessness of future elections into federal elections in a country that is completely polarized. Everybody wants to go their own way in this country. The Igbo people from Akwa Ibom are asking for their own free state. Lower Niger Territory is asking to go apart, and Oduduwa Nation is also seeking to go apart. And Middle Belt that has come under intense jihad attack, where the Fulani herdsmen terrorists being powered by the Nigerian government, being protected by the Nigerian government, being armed by the Nigerian military, has been attacking communities and replacing them. An active genocide to which the world has turned a blind eye to. The Middle Belt are equally seeking out of Nigeria, just like Lower Niger Territory and the Oduduwa Nation. Let's hear what Kingsley Moghalu had to say about this.
Hello, my name is Kingsley Moghalu. I know that it looks like it's all over for Nigeria, but I'd just like to remind each and every one of us that working together, we can stabilize Nigeria and make it a prosperous country. But in order to do this, we must all come to the table and address what the fundamental issues are, which is injustice. Nigeria needs a fundamental constitutional restructuring. There is no other way out. Else, there is a very strong possibility that the country can implode. If it does, and it does so violently, it will not be pretty. War and violence do not yield any real benefit for the normal man or woman in our country. It means disruption, it means economic dislocation, it means refugees, it means hunger, starvation, and all kinds of things. And if that happens, let us be very clear who is responsible. Those who refused the opportunity to fundamentally restructure Nigeria, giving it a truly new people's constitution. That's what we need to do. Let's begin that discussion before it is too late. But let's not give up hope. And on the other hand, we cannot have the peace of the graveyard. I don't believe in illusions. I don't deceive myself. I'm very pragmatic. We will and we can face the problems that are facing us, and we can overcome them. But I don't believe in the peace of the graveyard, and I don't believe in violence. Both are extremes. We want justice. We want prosperity. We want jobs for our youth. That's what we want. We need a leadership and a constitution that can give us the kind of leadership that this country desires and deserves. Thank you.
Ninas, where we came from, where we are, or the road to freedom. Today, we speak of Ninas, but know that the struggle for the restoration of our sovereignty did not start today. As a matter of fact, the struggle started almost as soon as the sovereignty of the ethnic nationalities was stolen by the imposition of the 1999 Constitution, which maintained a unitary government. With the end of the military regime and return to democracy, there was great hope that the country will be returned to what the people had voted for, and that existed prior to the military intervention in 1966. The hope of the country was dashed when, instead of a return to a federal governance structure with multiple self-governing and autonomous government with their own constitutions, the government was kept centralized in a federal government that kept all the power, the asset, and resources of the ethnic nationalities. Making things worse, this so-called constitution was not put to a referendum, and so was not made by the people. Deprive the citizens of their right to benefit contained in Chapter 2, made federal character unenforceable, gave the lion's share of the oil and other assets to the far north through a federal account sharing process that was exclusively weighted to favor the far north and make corruption official. Let me take you back over 2 decades of our journey. It all started when the military regime of General Abdul Salami Abubakar imposed a unitary 1999 constitution, which in turn was a wholesale rival of the 1979 constitution that was also known to be a victory charter for the Nigeria-Biafra War of 1967 to 1970. When it was made public a few weeks after inauguration of General Obasanjo as president, a better half of those in the legal profession gathered itself for conference and, without much ado, recognized the flaws, loopholes, and selfish intentions, then concluded that the Constitution was not legitimate and would not lead Nigeria to any form of advancement. It was important that the mechanism or vehicle to set up a countrywide rejection of this forgery of a constitution was put in place. The journey commenced when, in 2004, the Pro-National Conference Organization, PRONACO, was established to rework the damaged federal constitutional basis of Nigeria. PRONACO being the People's Sovereign National Conference of Ethnic Nationalities in Nigeria, convened in all ethnic nationalities, and quickly mandated its representation to go back to their people and to come up with ratified draft of how they would want to participate in the Union of Nigeria. The conference sat in plenaries across the cities of Lagos, Port Harcourt, Enugu, Jos, and Kano, then returned to Lagos for the final sitting, and in participation, conveners in the likes of Anthony Ehanuro, Wole Soyinka, Chukwu Emeka Odumego Ojukwu, and similar leaders across the territories. This resolution was an agreement derived from the Composite People's Constitution as presented and defended by ethnic nationalities representation in those sequential conference. And it is important to know that there were observers from the international community, including the US and European Union observers. In August 2006, a delegate from Castina moved the motion for adoption of the draft People's Constitution that emerged from the 29-point resolution of the conference. In furtherance of the PRONACO consensus to restore the federal basis of the Nigerian Union, in 2007, the Movement for a New Nigeria was set up as an enforcement of the consensus at the time to exclude the 12 contiguous northern states that had introduced and embraced the Sharia legal system against a secular basis for Nigeria. The Allies had insisted that democracy and Sharia system could not coexist in the same political space, hence the need for a new vehicle, the Movement for New Nigeria. On the 23rd of May 2007, MMN, through its legal counsel, filed a suit at the Federal High Court Abuja to challenge the legitimacy of the imposed 1999 Constitution, seeking the termination of the entire Constitution. At the court hearings, which had the Attorney General of the Federation representing the federal government, legal representation of the National Assembly, and others admitted the people case which they could not defend the challenge, but insisted that the plaintiff had no locus standi. In English, the plaintiff had no status at law to bring in the case to challenge the legitimacy of the 1999 Constitution. Having acknowledged that the restoration of the people's sovereignty did not need the participation or permission of government, the joint multi-regional vehicle instituted the MMN Lagos Declaration 30th of June 2011, by which the Allies partner blocks, the Lower Niger, South-South, and Southeast, the Yoruba land, and the Middle Belt publicly rejected the Caliphate-imposed 1999 Constitution, mandating regional self-determination actions which included referendum and international outrage. In furtherance to the mandate of the MMN Lagos Declaration, the people of the Lower Niger on the 27th of April 2015 held the Solemn Assembly in Port Harcourt City to wholly repudiate the 1999 Constitution. In that assembly, the 1,885 ethno-linguistic map of the Lower Niger was adopted as a geographical basis of federating. The assembly mandated the distillation of character of relationship as well as asset protection and guarantee scheme to protect the asset of the indigenous people in other blocks of Nigeria. On the mandate for international outrage of the MNN Lagos Declaration, an LNCT visited Capitol Hills, Washington, to make a case for the termination of the operation of Nigeria's 1999 Constitution at the special congressional event on Nigeria in May 2015. The team also made informal consultation for the same matter at the UN headquarters in New York in the same year. 2 years later, still in furtherance to mandate of the MNN Lagos Declaration, the Yoruba indigenous people held the Yoruba Solemn Assembly at Ibadan on the 7th of September 2017. The Assembly publicly repudiated the 1999 Constitution as the basis of the Federation of Nigeria and proclaimed the self-determination right of the Yoruba land to reclaim autonomy of Yoruba land.
The video here is a conversation on resource control with Professor Benjamin Okaba and Hakim Baba Ahmed,
and leader of the Pan-Niger Delta Forum, PANDEF, Edwin Clark, over the ownership of the hydrocarbon resources in the oil-rich Niger Delta region. In a 6-page letter to Clark, Obasanjo reminded the PANDEF leader that oil, like the mineral resources in other parts of the country, belong to all Nigerians as provided by the statutes. However, Michael Zekome, a senior advocate of Nigeria, jumped into the fray in typical fashion the next day, saying the former president completely missed the point. Well, Zekome said Obasanjo may be right from a legal standpoint, seeing that he was part and parcel of successive military juntas that cleverly and systematically inserted exploratory and inhuman laws concerning ownership of oil and gas into Nigeria's statute books. But this does not make the laws right or justifiable, he argued. According to him, the overriding principle of law recognizes that whoever owns the land owns everything on top of it. And as such, any extant constitutional or statutory provisions that runs contrary to the common law principle is nothing but bad, immoral, exploratory, and exploitative. He further went on to remind the former president that Nigeria operates a federal system of government, and federalism is fiscal and plural. Now joining us from Yenagoa and Kaduna to further the conversation on the age-old argument for and against the quest for resource control by the people of the Niger Delta are Professor Benjamin Okaba, President, Ijaw National Congress, and Hakim Baba Ahmed, spokesperson of the Northern Elders Forum. Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome to the show. Now, let's dive right in, shall we?
Good morning. Compliments of the season.
Oh, I wish you the same. Thank you, sir. Now, let's dive right into the argument. I'm going to start with you, Professor Okaba. I'd like your take on President Obasanjo's position, which is really a bit of a non-issue. Anybody who can read Section 44, subsection 3 of the 1999 Constitution. We all know that all mineral resources are vested in the federal government, but his point seems to be that that is the way it ought to be. His point seems to put that a full stop rather than a comma so that the conversation can continue to where we ought to be. What is your take?
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, in this intervention, we are not particular about the performance metrics of OBJ and his self-dignifying posturing as the messiah of Nigeria. I want to see OBJ as representing a class of persons who have actually fought so hard to sustain a system that is colonial, a system that is military driven, a system that serves the hegemonic interest against the interests of other people, of the rest of Nigeria. So it is on that point I want to say, yes, one, when you talk about the origin of the discussion, we need to go back to the December 13, 14 arguments, where OBJ stated clearly that in as much as Nigeria exists, any mineral, any resource found anywhere belongs to the entire Nigeria. It was at that point the Secretary of INC interjected him and reminded him that that there's injustice, mineral resources belongs to the people, and that remains our position. Now, OBJ makes reference to the Constitution. I want the 1963, 1960, 1979, 1999 Constitution, and ask the question whether the Constitution provision said or implied that mineral allocated in any part of Nigeria belongs to the location. That was the question he raised in the open letter to Per Clark. I want to say that the reference to the Constitution is a second thought in the first place. Secondly, that the colonial presidents, starting from 1916 Mineral Ordinance, 1946 Mineral Ordinance, were copiously copied into the subsisting constitutions of the country on resource management and all that. I would also understand the political economy of colonialism, which is about exploitation. Now, we're expected by independence, which was by way of some agreement that we're coming together as a federation. And in doing so, we have to respect the capacity of all the federated units to be guaranteed ownership, and as ownership of their resources, and make contributions to the center. So if you look at the 1963 Constitution very carefully, you see that there's no section that vests ownership of land on the federal government. In fact, where it even states that in the item 25 that land mineral resources can be legislated upon as exclusive list, you can see that that alone contradicts the fundamental principles of federalism. And the section 140 that we talk about makes provision for derivation. Derivation is 50% of whatever is gotten from a location is given back to the people. Now, that is an implication or implies recognition of ownership. Because if you say the resources belong to everybody, to every part, so why must you give part of it to where the resource was sourced?
Wow.
Why must you? So there's implicit recognition of ownership of resources. We know that it was a...
While the resources found in the Niger territory belongs to the rest of Nigeria, according to Obasanjo, the solid minerals like gold and other solid resources found in the north, in Zamfara State, in Kebbi State, in Bauchi, in Borno, they belong to those states. In fact, the governor of Zamfara State was captured on video displaying gold bars that were sourced from his state, and he was actually boasting on how he's going to sell it to the central bank for his own state's purse. And Obasanjo, the caliphate slave, the lifetime caliphate agent, is telling us that the oil found in the Niger Delta, in the eastern part of the country, belongs to everybody. So it's very sad. Very, very sad that this nonsense will be going on, and some southern elements are sounding off in support of injustice. It's the
1979 Constitution that's military driven, a constitution that is against the wish of people, a constitution that stifled the development of Nigeria, that injected a clause that says that all lands in Nigeria belong to the country.
Okay,
so what we are saying, just like the lawyer you mentioned earlier, said, look, the law of a nation or the constitution itself is a charter.
Okay, Professor Kaba.
It's a charter and cannot in any way anticipate or take care of all the exigencies. Okay. And that is why it's subject to reviews.
Okay.
Reviews upon reviews.
Okay, Professor Kaba.
We have come as Ijaw people.
Professor Kaba, can you hear me?
Great. We have come as Ijaw people to say that let us go back to the very basis of our coming together, which is 100% resource ownership. And we make contributions by way of paying of taxes to the country. In fact, when he also referred to federalism, democratic nations.
I'll have to come in here, Professor Kaba, because we have to also get other points of view to it. Dr. Akin Baba Ahmed, I would like your response to what Professor Kaba has stated. And also, I'd like to ask, in all of this, why is it that we even have a Land Use Act that says power of, governance of the land is vested in the hands of the state governor, but the resource in that same land goes to the federal government, but the land is supposed to belong to the state government. Why does the resource go to the federal government? That's as stated in our last Land Use Act of 78. Dr.
Well, first of all, I have the disadvantage of not hearing what my brother said. I didn't get a word he said. For some technical reasons, I've been cut off. Let me just say this. This debate or quarrel going on between President Obasanjo and one or two other people from the Niger Delta is misplaced. Is antiquated, and the context is entirely wrong. This is the kind of discussions we've had for the last 30, 40, 50 years ago, and we have no business discussing these resources is ours, doesn't belong to the rest of the country.
You are from Mauritania. What do you know about our resource
what we need
situation?
to do is to have a national discussion on the way we generate resources of the nation, and we share those resources.
Sure.
But if you limit it to an issue where a particular community feels that it has to raise its own issues in isolation, then every community will raise issues that are peculiar to them. From the Northern Elders Forum, we're working with other groups from the rest of the country to try and see if we can put matters of this nature on the table on our own and try and see if we can discuss them. Every inch of Nigeria has resources. Every inch of Nigeria can lay the same claim that the Niger Delta is laying on the western asset, which is oil and gas. And this is not the kind of thing that a nation looking for a new lease of life should be devoting unnecessary time and attention on. In the next 10, 20 years, oil and gas will be virtually irrelevant to both the national and the global economy. But there are resources in this country that will last for as long as this country lasts. And these arguments about this is ours and we must keep everything, they are legitimate to the degree that people feel that in the process of utilizing national resources, we suffer injuries, we're entitled to certain advantages. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you push this argument too far, the North will remind the rest of the country that the present Federal Capital Territory used to be Northern Territory. Every inch of the 250,000 kilometers it is used to be part of the North. The military took it away, turned it into a federal asset, and today 80 or 90% of the property in the Federal Capital Territory does not belong to Northerners. It belongs to Nigerians from the southern part of the country. So what happens if northern communities or people who used to live in the FCT now come up and say, we want special compensation, we want special treatment for
FCT, for the record, is located in the Middle Belt, not the North. Middle Belt. Continue, Hakim Baba Ahmed. You lying son of gun from the wherever, Mauritius, Mauritania, wherever your parents came from.
For the land that was taken away in 1976 by the military and handed over to the rest of Nigerians. What happens when we eventually find the resources to fully exploit the gold and the diamond and a lot of the resources that exist in other parts of the country? What about the water resources? What about many assets? What about the land that we do? 80% of the food that is eaten in this country is produced in the northern part of the country. So I don't think this is an argument that should be limited to President Obasanjo and Chief Clark and a few other people. We should sit down. If government is not going to allow a genuine, productive dialogue on the way the federation works, we should readdress the regeneration of national wealth, distribution of national. We should do so ourselves. If this administration is unwilling to pay attention to the values of this, let's wait for another administration. The world is not going to end with the President Buhari's administration. President Buhari may be hostile, or this administration may be hostile to opening up some of these sensitive but ultimately necessary debates, and we can do that later. As I said, we're willing, we're open, and we're looking forward to sitting down with Pandev and Afenifere and Ohaneze, not just to discuss assets declaration, assets, use of assets, but also a lot more things that are central to the survival of the country in the future.
Baba Ahmed, that is precisely the point. The point is that the issue is much larger than saying Section 43, subsection 3 states that all mineral resources are vested in the federal government, and that's that. The point is, as you have said, every inch of this country has resources to share with the rest of the country, and that conversation has to happen. The Niger Delta is advocating for their own resources. Zamfara should advocate for their gold,
yes.
Ondo for their bitumen, and everybody should have a greater stake, a greater sense of ownership with what they are sharing with the Commonwealth. And it boils down to resource control, it boils down to restructuring. And that has reared its ugly head in today's headlines, with the governor of Katsina State advocating self-help, that citizens of Katsina are severely under-policed with a meager 3,000 policemen to cater to them. It's ineffective. The citizens of Katsina have been run roughshod by who he describes as sons of our neighbors. Therefore, they should arm themselves. What do you think of the governor's suggestion?
This is part one of what will be part two. Conversation on resource control with Professor Benjamin Akaba and Hakim Baba Ahmed, speaking for the North. cornflakes for jihad. In May 2021, a 96-year-old businessman died in Rome, Italy. In his lifetime, Ahmed Idris Nasreddin might have amassed a personal fortune of close to $500 million. But the death of NASCO Group's multimillionaire founder barely made the news. At first glance, the only extraordinary thing about his life story was that it embodied the African entrepreneurship dream. Nasreddin was an Eritrean who moved to Jos in Plateau State and grew his business, small manufacturing business, into a $460 million conglomerate involved in everything from breakfast cereal and confectionery to pharmaceuticals, real estate, and energy. After many years of growth and success, he eventually handed his sprawling business empire over to his son, Atia Nasreddin, and retired at an old, satisfied age. In an official statement released after Nasreddin's death in May, Plateau State Governor Simon Lalong said, NASCO has over the years remained a major employer of labor in Plateau and continues to contribute to economic prosperity of the state and Nigeria at large through tax revenue and corporate social responsibility. Well, that was the cover story anyway. In reality, as it is so often the case in Nigeria, the gap between the facts and the information released to the public is so wide as to be scarcely believable. What on earth could this shrewd, respectable businessman who looked like he could not hurt a fly have done to put him in the same article as a story about the world's deadliest terrorist organization? Why would the brand he built, which to many Nigerians evokes memories of a beloved childhood breakfast staple, appear in the same sentence as Boko Haram? To answer these questions, our story begins on another continent in 1955, some 8 years before his father would move to Nigeria and establish NASCO Group. A scholar from Zamfara. The year is 1955, and a 33-year-old Islamic scholar from Gumin in modern-day Zamfara state has made his way to Mecca for his first Hajj pilgrimage. Alongside him is a certain Ahmadu Bello, who is the premier of northern Nigeria. During this trip, the scholar impresses both Ahmadu Bello and the Saudi king Saud with his Arabic translation skills. He rapidly makes a big impression on many locals and clerics in Mecca. These relationships will later become his most valuable asset following the events that take place after his subsequent return to Nigeria. Upon returning to Nigeria, he takes up positions teaching Arabic studies at Islamic schools in Kano and Kaduna. His style of teaching focuses on educating his students about the differences between Islamic religious doctrine and local customs. Based on his strict Sunni understanding of the Quran, he teaches his students to adopt a pure Islamic identity at the expense of practices that he considered bid'ah, roughly translated as innovation or corruption. Bid'ah is further broken down to mean the Sharia definition of bid'ah is a newly invented way, beliefs or actions in the religion in imitation of the Sharia prescribed law by which nearness to Allah is sought, but not being supported by any authentic proof, neither in its foundations nor in the manner in which it is performed. He also becomes the first Islamic scholar to translate the Quran from Arabic into Hausa, which puts him in a uniquely influential position comparable to that of Ajayi Crowther in 19th century southwestern Nigeria. Using this leverage, he becomes an increasingly powerful figure in northern Nigeria, with his essentialist view on Islamic doctrine gaining popularity. To him, the existing Sufi orders of northern Nigeria are polluted with bid'ah and unfit for purpose. He becomes well known for attacking the Tijana and Qadriya brotherhoods during his appearances on Radio Kaduna, while advocating for a return to Islamic purity. Following the death of his friend and the benefactor Ahmadu Bello, the scholar finds himself in a precarious situation. The new Nigerian federal government, led by soldiers, has a motive to crack down on anyone who is outspoken and influential. He may be a giant in northern Nigeria, but he is a giant with feet of clay. His solution is to seek financial, doctrinal, and political help from his friends in Mecca. The Saudis, as always, are ready to help. And let me add here that the Saudi Arabia and the United States knew all along about this, that Saudi-based charities raise money to fund Islamic uprising in countries like Nigeria. Saudi-based charities were supportive of those that bombed the 9/11, the Twin Towers in New York. Those in Saudi Arabia were behind Osama bin Laden, and they are still supporting Islamic uprising that is going on in Nigeria by the Fulani and current government of Nigeria. The United States knows all about this. They are not responding to it. Instead, they think it is to stoke up war, tension, proxy war against Russia in Ukraine. His Saudi backers are keen to use him to espouse the Saudi Arabian state's official interpretation of Islam, which is based on the work of 18th century Islamic scholar Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. His fundamentalist doctrine, often known as Wahhabism, fits very closely with the teachings of our hero in northern Nigeria, and he enthusiastically sets about gathering support for this new Saudi-funded project. In the 2009 book, The Wahhabi Mission and Saudi Arabia, historian David Cummins says, the Saudi-funded Muslim World League, also sent missionaries to West Africa, where it funded schools, distributed religious literature, and gave scholarships to attend Saudi religious universities. These efforts bore fruit in Nigeria's Muslim northern region, with the creation of a movement, the Izala Society, dedicated to wiping out ritual innovations. Essential texts for members of the Izala Society are Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab's treatise of God's unity and commentaries by his grandsons. Reaching out to his elsewise students across Kaduna and Kano over the course of the 1970s, the scholar-turned-politician slowly builds a coalition of strategically aligned individuals who will someday become very powerful people in northern Nigeria. In 1978, one of his prominent students, Sheikh Ismaila Idris, takes charge of this increasingly powerful but somewhat unofficial movement and calls it Jamal Istatil Bidar wa Ikamatus Sunnah, Society of Renewal of Innovation and Re-establishment of the Sunnah, also known as JIBWIS. JJBWIS, based in Jos and known colloquially as the Izala movement. This organization will go on to become the most influential Islamic body in Nigeria over the next few decades. Its members will become some of Nigeria's most revered imams and clerics. They will achieve high ranks in the Nigerian armed forces. Sheikh Gumi, the one that is meeting with terrorists across the north, the spokesperson of the jihad, the Islamization and jihadi movement sweeping across Nigeria. He is of this school of thought, the Izala movement. The current Minister of Communication, Issa Pantami, is of the Izala movement. JIBWIS will come to exert a level of influence over Nigeria's national politics, national security, and governance that is unprecedented for a religious body in Nigeria. Soon it will become almost impossible to achieve power in many parts of northern Nigeria without identifying with the Izala movement. Among other things, the scholar states that Muslims should never accept a non-Muslim as ruler, which can be interpreted as a call for insurrection against a Christian Nigerian president. He is never held to account for this statement. In any case, he no longer believes that writing books or teaching people about Islam will, on their own, lead to an Islamic renaissance in northern Nigeria. Now he is all about partnership and politicking. He maintains his membership in northern Nigeria's legacy Islamic group, Jamal Nasrul Islam Group for the Victory of Islam. But he is unmistakably the beating heart of the new Izala movement. To all intents and purposes, this is the birth of modern Salafist Islam in Nigeria, and they are in government as we speak. Without firing a shot or winning an election, this Islamic scholar has become one of the most powerful men in northern Nigeria. His name is Abubakar Mahmood Gumi. That's the person I was talking about. Abubakar Gumi, a former captain in the Nigerian military turned Islamic scholar, being funded by Saudi Arabia. The clerics, the Saudis, and what happened in Algeria. By the way, this is a footnote, editor's note. Sheikh Ahmad Abubakar Gumi is the son of Abubakar Mahmood Gumi, the close friend of Ahmadu Bello. Keep track of this whole development. The clerics, the Saudis, and what happened in Algeria. This will be in series. This will be part 1. Fast forward 33 years. It is Christmas Day in 2011, and Abubakar Gumi has been dead for over 19 years. A bomb suddenly goes off at St. Teresa Catholic Church, Madala, on the outskirts of Abuja, killing 35 people and wounding a further 52. Almost simultaneously, a series of coordinated bomb attacks and shootings take place at churches in Jos, Gadaka, and Damaturu. An obscure Islamist group calling itself Boko Haram claims responsibility for the attacks. You see Abubakar Gumi's connection? During the trial of the main suspect, Kabiru Umar, aka Kabiru Sokoto, 2 years later, a masked witness claims that an Algerian Islamist group provided funding and support worth 40 million naira or $250,000 then at the time to carry out the attacks. To the general public, it is unclear what the link is between Islamists in northern Nigeria and well-funded terror groups in North Africa. To those in the know, however, the incidents of December 25, 2011 are not only expected, but are likely to intensify and become more regular. This is because while the Nigerian public up to this point has been fed with what amounts to a tiny percentage of the actual story behind the Boko Haram group, this group has in fact been incubating and nurtured on the highest level of theological, economic, political spaces in northern Nigeria. Boko Haram in reality is so much bigger than Mohammed Yusuf and Abubakar Shekau that reducing it to those two men serves to miss the actual story spectacularly. Mind you, this is 2022. ISIS moved into northern Nigeria about the time United States and its allies chased them out of northern Syria and Iraq. They relocated to West Africa. And in fact, I think it was last year that ISIS executed Shekau. They killed him and took over the structures, took over the management of Boko Haram. So ISIS is in charge of Boko Haram, and ISIS has a foothold in Nigeria today. Okay, to start to get some of the picture of what Boko Haram is, and including Fulani herdsmen terrorists and where it came from, let us retreat from 2011 to 2006 to read an excerpt from a letter written by the permanent representative of Nigeria to the United Nations, Aminu B. Wali, addressed to the chairman of the Counter-Terrorism Committee. This letter is available in full online. You can get it, just search it on Facebook, and I'm going to be sharing it again. This has been shared many times. From the official repository for UN documents, written by the Nigerian government to the UN, it lays out the measures it has taken to fight terrorism in Nigeria. Take special note of the names mentioned in bold letters. It will end here. We will try part 2, but again, it probably will not exhaust, so you have to read it more online. It's titled Conflicts for Jihad, the Boko Haram Origin, Add Fulani herdsmen and other terrorists that this Abubakar Gumi has been going to the bush to visit with. If you add them up, you know where we are, how far they are out to take over Nigeria, and why you must go for referendum. Have a great day. It's Lower Niger Radio reaching out to you. It's been Stephen, your guy.
Yesterday, Asuzu Chinedu Peters shared a video interview or commentary of Attorney Femi Falana. And after reviewing that comment from Femi Falana, I came to the realization that something is actually fundamentally wrong with Nnamdi Kanu's legal team. If Femi Falana, who has been dealing with Nigeria cases such as Omoyele Sowore and others who have come under government attack or persecution, can say that the government does not even have any strong case against Nnamdi Kanu, how come Kanu's lawyers are going about lobbying people to go and appeal to the government to let their client go, when their client have an opportunity to expose Nigeria more and have an opportunity to actually give reasons behind whatever stand their client is taking against the country? Instead of doing this, they are inciting our people to go and continue to initiate from different voices, from different breakaway groups out of the IPOB. They are all making demands and making calls, all kinds of different calls. One will say no more stay at home on Mondays. Another one will say no, it has to be, even Simon Ekpa in Finland said that it should be one day, any day can be added. In fact, that there may be no Christmas in the Southeast. Like an enemy of Southeast. This guy is living in Finland and having good time. Living with his family, going about Sunday to Saturday, doing his business, nobody stops him. But he thinks that our people should be controlled and messed up and destroyed because Nnamdi Kanu is in jail, where we insist that justice must be done to him. So essentially, Nnamdi Kanu is Biafra, and Biafra is Nnamdi Kanu, to the exclusion of all other Southeast or South citizen. That's very unfortunate. That's super unfortunate. Anyway, that visit by our so-called elders, led by a man I used to respect, Chief Amechi Mbazulike, that visit, there was absolutely no reason for that visit. It was more or less a disgrace to Ndibo. The type of people we are people of justice, we are people of equity, we are people that wanted to have things done right. That wasn't right. We shouldn't go to appeal to anybody. I mean, somebody who removed a likely candidate for the Supreme Court Justice, Chief Justice. How could he stand up and claim that he supports the separation of powers when he has actually initiated the removal of a Supreme Court Justice unlawfully, when he has actually used the Attorney General, current terrorist that is manning Nigeria's Attorney General's office, Malami. He used him to raid Mary Odele's house because she is the next most likely candidate to head the Supreme Court. They just want to tarnish her to stop her from getting there. Now, who wants to have such a country to call their own? Where are the proud Nigerians? Meanwhile, those people that are seeking to destroy Alibo over nothing, I think they are waging a class war. There's a particular, even though they have escalated it against everybody, but this may be the danger that philosophers of the past saw and warned against those that you abandoned, those children that you refuse to educate. Even Awolowo spoke on this. Those children you refuse to educate, you refuse to equip to face life, one day they will turn against you. And that's exactly where Nigeria is now. But there is hope. That hope is on a binding multi-regional referendum that will cover Middle Belt, our area, the Lower Niger Territory, which includes South, and Southeast, and Oduduwa area, which is present there, Southwest. Now, when we have this referendum, we will formally either get Nigeria in a more functional state or we separate. In fact, we cannot even, I shouldn't say get Nigeria into a functional, Nigeria will not function. The only way for Nigeria to function really is to split through referendum. We go through referendum. That thing which the Northerners did like 20-something years ago, 21 years ago, when they began to initiate Sharia legal code, that was essentially separation from Nigeria. But we're going to do our own in a very democratic manner, which is to be supervised by the United Nations. Referendum vote for regional constitutions. From there, we will decide what we want to do. That's how Canada as a country was formed. I don't know why this is too difficult for somebody like Mohammed, but anyway, nobody can tell him because they have no need to know the right way to go. Those setting Nigeria on fire are the presidency, the legislature, the armed forces, the police. Everyone that is operating under current Nigerian constitution is an enemy of Nigeria because they are supporting criminality, which is what the constitution represents. Have a nice day.
We came out yesterday, May the 2nd, to a statement purportedly coming out from one Peter Afunanya that says is a spokesman of DSS, threatening everybody who says who is doing anything that will threaten the unity of Nigeria and the sovereignty of Nigeria and government and all such nonsense. Well, I would be surprised if it came from DSS, because one cannot trust what we find on social media these days. But if anybody is still at that mundane level of thought of describing self-preservation actions being taken within the rights of self-determination that's inalienable to the constituents of the disputed Federation of Nigeria, because this Constitution 1999, that is a forgery, that has our signature at the base as authorization. As long as that constitution is in place, Nigeria is a disputed project, because the people who are purported to have agreed to live together have come forward to say we never met, we never agreed on anything. It is a forgery, it is a fraud against all of us. It is in that kind of setting that one will be addressing on behalf of NINAS, addressing that State Directorate of State Services, DSS, to point them, to explain to them, just in case they didn't know. They should be finding out from their principal what is going on. That is the federal government of Nigeria. They should realize that what the people who are demanding an immediate reconstruction of the constitutional basis of Nigeria, the one they call restructuring, or even the ones that say they are fed up, they want to go to be countries of their own, they are not the ones threatening the unity of Nigeria. The people that are threatening the unity of Nigeria, that are pushing Nigeria towards disintegration in the manner that the Vice President had warned about in September of 2020, are the ones who are holding on to that forgery of a constitution to say we cannot, that Nigeria is non-negotiable and not indivisible and all of that. They are the ones who are refusing to come forward for that imperative of reconstruction for a house that is on the verge of collapse. They are the ones pushing Nigeria towards disintegration, and one will expect that. They will, the DSS and all of those who are trying to, the other time it was some semi-literate governors that were talking about people who are doing secession and others who are doing treason. The only secession on the table now are the ones who declare themselves Sharia, who have seceded from the secular union of Nigeria, these 12 states. The only treason on the table now are the ones who are clinging onto the constitution that's a forgery, against the rest of us.
My name is Dr. Charles Dimwobi. I'm the MD of...
Yet another interpretation of things you are seeing, which you need to understand, because they will come to haunt you in no time at all. There is a recent addition to the conditions the APC had placed on the pathway of their aspirants for who will become their candidate. That condition is that all aspirants on their platform, on the APC platform, will have to commit to preserving the 1999 Constitution if they manage to become candidate and win election. As innocuous as it may sound to you, because we all know that whoever wins the election will swear to defend and uphold the atrocious 1999 Constitution. But because of what NINAS has done, because of the onslaught against that Constitution by those who are choking under it, because of the determined push to take down that Constitution and end the unitary union anchored on it, and go to transition. The proprietors of Nigeria, who also happen to be the proprietors of APC of now, are now trying to make assurance double that that constitution will not suffer if we go to this election, because there's this convergence of demand against that constitution. The first big success of the NINAS alliance is that a strong consensus has been built against the constitution that make the indigenous nationalities slaves in their land. The Jaw wants the constitution down. The Yoruba wants the constitution out. The Middle Belt wants the constitution defeated and removed. all of us, the owners of the lands that the world calls Nigeria, and the assets in the lands, those who have been choking from the unitary impositions of the caliphate against all by way of that constitution, which came through decree number 24 of 1999. And so, where we are now is that the apprehension has come to the point where the APC has put a condition that, people must say to them in private, must commit, must covenant with them that that constitution will not be touched if they become president. If we take it further, we will then see that all this talk about consensus, they can't even get to primaries. They don't know how to get to election because the owners of the land say they don't want election. So they are eroding everybody. And they really don't know what to expect. And so we have to build on our successes of having delegitimized that constitution successfully. That constitution is dead. All the people who are hanging on it, all the things built on it, all the institutions built on it, including the claim that we submitted as sovereignty that is in the preamble, all of them are going down. That claim is going down. The second claim that we wrote the constitution is going down. The 36 states that they were indiscriminately created, and the 704 local government areas carved out to suck revenue to people who bring nothing to the table. All of those things are going down. The 68 items of exclusive list that seize the assets of the owners of the land, the oil and gas of Niger Delta, the ports of Lagos, the bitumen of Ondo, the limestone of Benue, all of the right to even generate electricity, which is now confiscated by that exclusive list, the right to elect who will govern us, all those things are going down with that constitution. And so those who are heading to that election with the people inviting them, let it be made clear that it is a contestation between our sovereignty, retrieval of our sovereignty. Look at the map you see behind.
There's a 90% chance your phone is already infected with this. There's a new groundbreaking discovery that's reversing planned obsolescence. And smartphone companies are trying their hardest to make it illegal in the U.S.
In our ancestral lands, holding us in bondage via that constitution, are the ones dragging you to go to election to renew the life of that constitution, which is why the forces of heaven has also opened their mouth to tell everybody that that is their paramount concern, that that constitution must be saved. APC says their candidate must, the aspirant that will become candidate must covenant, must swear to them that he will not touch that constitution when he gets there, if he becomes president. I'm sure in the PDP circle, there will also, because the same caliphate controls the two-party platforms, whether we want to tell ourselves the truth or not. And so I will not be surprised. This one is in the public space. I will not be surprised if there's a similar thing in PDP to say, assure us that you will not, touch the constitution when you get there. Whereas the people being represented by these candidates are only after one thing now. The East, the West, the Middle Belt, everybody wants that constitution out of their lives. So why is it now a condition for the candidates that will go to election? Can we now see that that election is a make or mass, is a rendezvous for determining what will happen to this union of Nigeria? If we are stupid enough, like we said in a previous video, if those who are choking, those who have been rendered slaves under the constitution imposed by the caliphate, by the Fulani, if the rest of Nigeria will be stupid enough, will be reckless enough to go with them to election, you are being told by that condition, you are being told that we can give you power, but your sovereignty will remain detained. That's what the election of 2023 will represent if we go with them. Whereas our own salvation is in not going with them. Our own salvation is in saying to them, this constitution, whoever wins election will have to swear to govern by, to defend and govern by that constitution. Therefore, we will remain the slaves we are under that constitution. And so we are not going to any election. The salvation of the rest of Nigeria from the killings that are happening to them, from the mass expropriation that has happened to them, in which the federal government own all the federal government that is owned by the Fulani now own all their assets, in which their populace are being impoverished just by sheer expropriation of all of what represents economic assets. We already know them: the ports, the oil and gas, the bitumen, and all the solid minerals in between. Even the power to refine, petroleum products have all been confiscated, because I can buy petrol, I can buy crude oil and refine, but the Constitution of Nigeria says it is only the federal government that has exclusive right to do that. I can organize my security. It's only that Constitution that says I cannot touch gun. So how am I going to organize security against invaders, Fulani invaders that are killing all around the place? So, and we now come to what do we do with the situation in which those who are going to election are now more or less going to trade away our freedom, our sovereignty, our self-determination, because they want power they will hold for 4 years. And then the Constitution is preserved, the union of death is preserved. A few people who are coronated will make a few billions. We saw Obasanjo was president for 8 years. What did he change for the Yoruba? Are they not on the streets now crying? Jonathan was president for 6 years. What did he change? And we hear all kinds of stories about how he's the one that they will have to put in power. We have defeated this constitution. We have defeated the caliphate that imposed it. And they are looking for how to get to election and how to control the day after the election. We know that their calculations around how Jonathan will suddenly become their candidate revolves around the goodwill that Jonathan has that may help them secure the journey to the election, which is already suffering. And more importantly, that if Jonathan is the one that becomes their candidate and the winner of the election, he is done 4 years before, so he will only do 4 years. And of course, since they have secured a prior commitment that constitution will not be touched, they will retain they will get their strategic, they will achieve their strategic objective of preserving that constitution and the union of master and servant it imposes on the rest of us. Of course, those who become ministers and all kinds of things that the government share from Abuja will make some money, but that's where it ends. So our sovereignty, our freedom is now to be traded for our, for the power that a few will, hold for. If that's what's at issue. And so we needed to inform our people the meaning of that condition that was attached. The caliphate is now they're in a chokehold. The constitution is in a pinfall, and the only way they can maneuver is to drag us to election, so that they have made up their mind to, just let these people have power for a few years, 4 years, but at the expense of our sovereignty that is detained in that constitution that will stay. Peter Obi that have been invited to Downing Street in London, that is what it is. It is to firm up that commitment that in case you become, I was talking about PDP that might have that condition will be across board. That nobody will touch that one. Anybody who is telling you he's going to do restructuring if he becomes president, including Atiku. We've said it in a previous video. We engaged Atiku Abubakar in 2016. If you want to see what we discussed with him, get on YouTube, search the video title, Nigeria at the Valley of Decision. You will see the 2016 video on AIT, where we went to report what transpired between us and what we thought was the statesman speaking at the time. But it turned out he was just another politician, because what we concluded was not done. And then it became basis of going to become candidate for PDP in the convention ahead of 2019. That was how Atiku became. He was now advertising himself as the one that will come and do restructuring, and everybody became articulated, thinking he would do so. I inform you on behalf of NINAS that Atiku Abubakar's definition of restructuring begins and ends with the National Assembly. Not at all the restructuring we're talking about that will go to the foundation of whether we want to be in union or not. And so, if you fall for that bogey that Atiku will do restructuring, you are just lying to yourself, because if you go to research what transpired and what he has done since that 2016 to now, has he lifted a finger in support of the efforts we're making to take down that constitution and go to the reconstruction that is needed? No. But he wants to ride on that again. Oh, I'm the one that will do restructuring for you. No restructuring will happen if Atiku becomes president. And we're not saying this, to make way for another candidate. Our position is clear. Let us not go to any further elections under this constitution. Let us go to transition while we can. Otherwise, this house will collapse on everybody. The people who are being killed across the length and breadth of Nigeria, the people whose assets have been detained, are not going to be clapping and cheering for those who are going to election to renew their enslavement against their will.
Drinking water before bed burns 46 pounds in 2 weeks. If you are struggling to lose weight and you're over 25, then you need to
election to renew their enslavement against their will. We better listen to ourselves now and put away this nauseating discussion about the election to govern where? The Nigeria is dead. The constitution that brings us together is gone. You can't hold it together by force. This alliance has become a bigger force. If you think you have guns to use to hold this union together, with all of what I've done across the last 22 years, we have set the table. The December 16 constitutional force majeure proclamation provides a framework within which you can solve this problem now. Those who are going into election are defying the rest of the people. They are defying the peoples of Nigeria. They are defying the indigenous nationalities of Nigeria. The political merchants from the South and Middle Belt who are going to election under the 1999 constitution that have been repudiated by your people, you are defying them. Let that day not come when they will wake up and begin to look for you for defying them, for selling them out, for dragging them back to slavery when they have worked their way out of slavery. We are already free of that union. The people trying to drag us back to that prison are the politicians from the South and Middle Belt that are now going to hold hands with their confederates from the North. Well, we have no quarrel with the ones from the Caliphate side who inherited what Uthman Danfodio and Ahmadu Bello left for them as the estate of their great-grandfather. We have no quarrel with them at all. The people we are going to hold accountable, the people who are going to unleash every available fury against are the politicians from the South and Middle Belt, whether they are of APC or PDP, now dragging us to election at a time we say, let us not go because of that constitution. Let us go and solve this problem before any further elections. And if we can't find common ground, because there are people who have chosen to embrace a civilization that requires them to kill us, to kill other people. We saw what happened to Deborah in Sokoto. We saw what has happened in Kano. We saw what's going on all over the place. And we see the complicity of our president and his federal government and his kinsmen and our borders that have been left open for the relations of Hakim Baba Ahmed to come. And the fellow who just came from Mauritania the other day is here insulting us to our faces. And we're all clapping and cheering. Let us realize that that constitution cannot be saved by all these shenanigans.
That's it. Ever wondered what democracy really means, other than the madness and crookedness going on in Nigeria? Well, here's a reminder on the true and full meaning of the word democracy. This is coming from the radio Lower Niger Territory, the voice of freedom and liberty. When democracy is defined as government of the people, by the people, and for the people, number one, of the people means that the people, in exercise of their sovereignty, set the spring rules that govern their union, that is, agree upon and codify the terms of association in a document called the Constitution. Number 2, by the people means that those who will govern are vested with power and authority as defined and allotted by the Constitution, only by the vote of the people. Number 3, for the people means that those who wield power do so only in service of and to the benefit of the people. Nigeria's so-called democracy does not pass any of these 3 legs of test, as the people did not make the 1999 Constitution. Neither does the conferment of power flow from the vote of the people, nor the wielders of power do so to the service and benefit of the people. We know what is going on in Nigeria. Everything is pirated. Numbers are cooked up and assigned. Votes do not count. Ballot is serially snatched. There is bribery and bullion vans. Politicians move bullion vans on election day to move money that they will share, that they will use to intimidate others. This is the lot of Nigeria. It hasn't changed. It is what it is. You know? It is what it is.
And they have not had all their best checkers the majority of the year.
Here is a very important announcement from NINAS, the Nigeria Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination. This is a release coming out today, February 13, 2022. It's regarding post-Nigeria formations for fresh protocols. Actually, this article, now very, very relevant, was originally published on the 3rd of November 2017, somewhere else. It is the Constitution of Nigeria that holds together the territory called Nigeria as one political union. The demise of that fraudulent and fundamentally flawed 1999 Constitution by the express actions of the constituent component blocks of the defunct Federation of Nigeria, which collapsed since 1967, threw up an imperative in which the former federating regions began to work out post-Nigeria arrangements. In the manner silhouetted by the segmented map below, the map will be shared on Facebook, and it's also available at NINAS, ninasvoice.org, and Lower Niger Congress.org. The map will be available there. So, from which formation, by the segmented map below, from which formation willing, compatible, neighboring ethnic nationalities will forge fresh protocols in unfettered self-determination using referendums and plebiscites to validate the formation and the fresh protocols. This 4-block map represents the formations in which the entrapped constituent nationalities of the defunct Federation of Nigeria are working out their future. The emerging federations will be as follows. Excuse me. On the north, on the far north, you have the Sharia territory that comprises the 12 Sharia states, the 12 states that began to implement Sharia law from year 2000. And the next on the map will be the Middle Belt. The Middle Belt. And the next two below will be the prospective Lower Niger Federation and also the prospective Yoruba Federation, Yoruba Nation or Oduduwa Nation. The 12-state Sharia contiguity green block above on the map seceded from the Secular Union of Nigeria when in year 2000 they simultaneously imposed Sharia in repudiation of the 1999 Constitution upon which the Union is federated, flawed as that Constitution is. The blue block is the Yoruba contiguity, including the Yoruba of Kwara and Kogi states, which by their September 7, 2017 Solemn Assembly at Ibadan repudiated and rejected the fraudulent 1999 Constitution as the basis of Nigeria. The brown block is the Lower Niger, which at its 2015 Solemn Assembly in Port Harcourt rejected and repudiated the so-called 1999 Constitution as the basis of Nigeria, adopted the 1885 ethno-linguistic map of the Lower Niger as the geographical basis of the prospective Lower Niger Federation and mandated a self-determination referendum. I will go over this paragraph one more time. The brown block is the Lower Niger, which at its 2015 Solemn Assembly in Port Harcourt rejected and repudiated the so-called 1999 Constitution as the basis of Nigeria, and then adopted the 1885 ethno-linguistic basis of the prospective Lower Niger Federation and mandated a self-determination referendum. The purple block is the Middle Belt, which is currently under a bloody siege from the jihadists of the Green Bloc. It will be recalled that it was the compromise of substituting Sharia, which Ahmadu Bello wanted for the northern region, with the Penal Code by the Willings Commission in 1957 that made the Middle Belt a part of the then northern region. The predominantly Christian Middle Belt had, in a run-up to Nigeria's independence, insisted on being a region of their own, in rejection of the Sharia that the predominantly Muslim far north wanted. The year 2000 simultaneous imposition of Sharia by the 12 contiguous states of the predominantly Muslim far north, spanning from Sokoto to Borno, the Green Bloc on the segmented map, was a grand repudiation of the 1957 Compromise and by extension a repudiation of the federating with the Middle Belt and more so the rest of Nigeria, as Sharia is mutually exclusive with democracy and constitutionalism. The notice of constitutional force majeure proclaimed by the NINAS, Nigeria Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination Movement, on 16 December 2020, expounds on the implications of unilaterally taking up Sharia in a union agreed to be secular. It is this irreconcilable clash of civilizations introduced by Sharia into an already inequitable union with a federating basis that collapsed since the military coup of 1966, but held together by brute force and guile, that is responsible for the current unraveling of what has become a union of attrition and decline for the entrapped constituent components. The imposed 1999 Constitution, a forgery, has now been repudiated by many nationwide. For the sake of justice, security, and progress, the lingering union dispute must now be resolved. The NINAS movement that has quietly and steadfastly been at the work for over 2 decades has placed its nonviolent proposition, an orderly process, on the table. The notice of constitutional force majeure can be read from NINA's website here, at www.nenasvoice.org/movement-group-constitutional-force-major. This was you are encouraged to subscribe to the NINAS Movement newsletter. You can sign up on this website, the same website that I just mentioned, www.nenasvoice.org. Thanks for listening. This has been Stephen from the Voice of Lower Niger Territory. Considering the content we have here already, I think it's very vital that we remind ourselves again on the full meaning of the word democracy. And it is said that Nigeria's so-called democracy does not pass any of the 3 legs of test as the people, as contained in the dictionary description of the word democracy. Democracy is defined as the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. This is the definition of democracy. And when it's broken down, number 1 says, of the people means that the people in exercise of their sovereignty set the supreme rules that govern their union, that is, agreed upon, something they are working with, a guiding document, and codify the terms of association in a document called the Constitution. By the people means that those who will govern are vested with power and authority as defined and allotted by the Constitution, only by the vote of the people. That will be number 2, which is by the people. We started with number 1, of the people. Number 2 is by the people. And number 3 is for the people. In describing democracy, government of the people, by the people, and for the people. For the people means that those who wield power do so only in service of and to the benefit of the people. Nigeria's so-called democracy does not pass any of these 3 legs of test, as the people did not make the 1999 Constitution. I remember that the 1999 Constitution was designed by the slave takers to enslave the rest of the country, to take the rest of the country back to the Ottoman Danfodio era, which goes way deeper, way further from the colonial era of Nigeria. Their intentions were not good then. It's still not good till this moment, and will not be good until that Constitution is fully set on fire by the referendum votes from the regions, burying it once and for all. Thanks for listening. This has been Lower Niger Territory.
Because what you are asking, hold on one minute, is that this constitution should not be. And you expect that a total overhaul. Let me finish. You want a total overhaul of this constitution, and you liken it to the South African appetite. Okay, tell us the process to get into what we are saying, because the president also, do not forget, assumed office, or all the people you expect to do something about it, assumed office based on this document. So what is your practical step to getting this done?
South Africa in 1990 came to this bus stop where we have just arrived. The sitting government that was elected, and there was a parliament, Frederick de Klerk. He now, for the first time up to that time, accepted that the apartheid constitution could no longer be the basis of the South African society, because it was imposed by a white minority to take the lands and the rights of the blacks, and that is exactly what we have here. The Ijaw lost their land and their oil and gas to Nigeria because some military president under Gowa seized it by decree. The Lagos port belong to Lagos people. Nigeria takes more than 2 trillion naira from this port every year. But from independence to date, not one controller general of custom of Yoruba origin. And therefore, if Gani Adams now say, how did we come to this? And he pick up and the discussion that should be holding is one in which the government of the day will have to accept that this apartheid constitution can no longer be the basis of Nigeria. We are not anarchists. In the suit we filed in 2007 against the constitution, we asked the court to give an order that will compel them within a period of 18 months to remain in office and work out that discussion that will lead to a new constitution. That's not too much to ask for, because South Africa did it. They accepted that the apartheid constitution had to go, and they called everybody.
Now, relying on them to work out a new constitution.
No, they are not saying so. In that terms of reference, they say how to incorporate whatever.
I'm asking you how you intend to arrive at a new constitution.
How it will arrive at is that the people, those who are trapped here, before going to make a central constitution, because a federation should have a federation of many constitutions. Up to 1966, we had 5 constitutions, because each of the federating units were like countries of their own that were now coming to cooperate, like Germany and France and Portugal doing European Union. That was the kind of constitution Awolowo had to manage Western region. That was the kind of constitution Obara had to manage Eastern region. But some people woke up in 1966, threw all of those things away, and now locked us into this unitary arrangement. So we're saying that the first step is to ask those who will come, because tomorrow morning they will now begin to announce the names of their friends who are going to meet. We are not going to pay any attention to whatever government does. The conference is already on, and steps are being taken to take a referendum from those who are working their way out of this union, because the union has collapsed. If we do not accept in good time that it has collapsed and go to sit down to discuss how we will revive it, I tell you that under the instruments available to those who are choked here, and 3.5 million people have been killed in eastern Nigeria on this same question. OD have been wiped out, Okerenkoko have been wiped out, Obakere have been wiped out. All kinds of things are going on. Just the other day, 78 students were massacred in their sleep, because some people must be in power in Nigeria. They say they will make the country ungovernable, and they are making it ungovernable to date. And we are still thinking that there's a Nigeria. That Nigeria that will include a Sharia belt in which I cannot function in Sokoto or Kano or Maiduguri. I will not be part of that Nigeria. I will rather invest all my energy in how to take out my portion. If those who are saying they have conquered us and they are going to keep us by all means for all times insist that we cannot discuss, then we'll do whatever comes within our reach to do to take our portion.
Now, let me ask you, Mr. Nadi,
yes.
If at the end of the day we are having reactions from Afenifere, for instance, we are having reactions from Ohanes and Igbo, we are having reactions from Arewa Consultative Forum,
been with all
how
of them.
be it speaking, saying that they do not, they will not agree for the name sovereign to be added to whatever conference. Now, let me ask you, would you say that these groups do not represent the blocks which they say they represent?
They do not speak for
and
the people.
If you do not agree with their representation, who are the people that you are talking to at this at this point about
back to 75%? Tambuwa said that all of them politicians constitute only 25%. He said it on the floor of National Assembly the day they resumed last week or so, that they constitute only 25% of the country's population. I'm here to speak on behalf of that unrepresented.
And the Arewa is not speaking for
anybody. No, they all have vested interests. They all have things they share with their people in government. What we're saying is that let us accept that Nigeria was not our making in 1914. Let us accept that the little discussion we had all the way to 1960 got toppled in 1966. Let us then accept that the product of that toppling, which is the current constitution, because from 1966 to date, all the 36 states that were created, who created them? Now they call me Abia State or Imo State or somebody else, Bayelsa State. There is none of the people in those places, like Delta State, cannot, the people of Delta in some areas were agitating for some autonomy. You now create a state and put the capital in Asaba. From that time to date, Delta State had not been the project of Ijo, Urobo, Ishekiri, and all of
Mr.
them.
Mr. Nadi, would you not rather wait? Let's just see this process. No, because you have acknowledged that this is actually an act of statesmanship by Mr. President.
I commend him. I commend him.
At least to have you to prove you right or wrong? Is it not a bit too early?
I was actually expecting to see your name in that list.
Of course, they know they will not put my name on any list of people who are going to be discussing, who are going to a meeting in which Nigeria is held sacrosanct, in which somebody will write in the terms of reference that the outcome of the conference will be integrated into a constitution, meaning that they want to preserve that constitution by all means. And we are saying we will not touch one alphabet from inside this constitution. So these are the two grounds, these are the two positions that will have to be married through the next few days.
But in the event that this conference is convoked,
yes,
in the event that the different nationalities meet and do discourse,
yes,
would you now throw away all of that? Because your view can be seen as extreme. It is either this, it is either all or nothing. Do you think
there is no halfway? There's no halfway in a matter of reconstruction. If you want to put a 40-story structure on this ground now, you know it will take it. But the first thing that will happen is that bulldozer has to enter here to level it, to be able to put up a new structure. Anything that is built on this foundation of falsehood, and if you let us take it down to our people, in saying that we the people, we are saying that we have submitted by ourselves. So it's a forged signature by which Nigeria is selling 3 million barrels of crude oil every day and sharing the money, $250 million every single day in Abuja, to the exclusion of the owners. If you come to the provisions inside the Constitution, you then begin to see a chapter 2 that provides for all the good things of life, but a clause in section 6C, and shame on the lawyers in Nigeria, including the justices up to the Supreme Court, that will hold this document up and say it's a constitution. Because those who wrote it had taken all of the content of the Treasury as their own by that provision, to say that nothing is for the citizen except as they deem fit. That is the unjust.
Samadi, before we let you go on this segment, like Victor asked, and
yes,
it's the heart of the matter.
The thing to do is
to
allow the ethnic nationalities
and have this discussion without what you are saying, and this scales through.
If somebody,
what does that
Abacha held a conference, but Obasanjo held a conference. What happened to them? Because somebody sat in Abuja, like David Mark is sitting, to tell us that it is how they do it that we have to accept. What we're saying is that they must accept that sovereignty belongs to the people and let them organize themselves and send those who they will truly wish to discuss their future for them in a conference that will end in a referendum.
Thank you, sir, for coming.
Thank you very much, sir, for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
We have been speaking to Mr. Tony Nnadi, who is the Secretary General of the Lower Niger Congress and the convener Movement for New Nigeria. Thank you once again.
The story have never changed. It's the same thing. All the cosmetic measures being applied on Nigeria to make Nigeria, to get Nigeria going, is not working, because everything that is being done by the senators, by the members of the House, or even executive branch or the judiciary, they are all skirting around the fact that the foundation is faulty. Nigeria's foundation, rooted on 1999 Constitution, is a fraud, and you don't expect this fraud to fix itself. Nigeria needs a surgical operation. That's the only thing that will work. Here is a note of direction on the Yoruba petition to the United Nations. It's coming from the NINA Secretariat. In response to several requests to the NINA Secretariat for clarifications regarding the Yoruba 5 million signatures target petition to the UN, let it be known that 1. For the purpose of self-determination campaign currently being waged by the constituent components of Nigeria under the multi-regional cooperation aegis of the Nigeria Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination, NINAS, every step taken by any of the components in repudiation of the Union of Nigeria or its constitution will be welcomed, and this will include petitions to the UN or any of its organs. However, let it also be known that such petitions addressed to the UN are just a category of opinion polls, and so would not by themselves become basis of any action by the UN to finalize the processes to independence. 2. With specific reference to an anonymous online announcement attached to the Ominira Yoruba petition being circulated since early March 2022, and claiming, amongst other things, that once the 5 million signature target is reached, it will be the basis for the formation of an interim government to administer Yoruba land and issue Yoruba currency and international passports. Please be informed that the said claim is false and grossly misleading, and that no matter what the intentions of the author of that online announcement may be, it is a great disservice to the Yoruba Liberation Campaign to deliberately erect such falsehood, which will only raise and dash the expectations of our people at this time. 3. The United Nations will only get involved in managing the resultant inevitable transitioning when the ground reality is sufficiently altered by our own actions. Our task, therefore, is to intensify our campaign to the degree that will precipitate the constitutional logjam that would need to be resolved. It is that logjam that will necessitate the transitioning and trigger the two-stage constitutional reconstruction processes that will have regional self-determination referendums in the first stage according to the 5-point proposition outlined in the December 16, 2020 NINA's Constitutional Force Majeure Proclamation. 4. At this stage of the Constitutional Force Majeure implementation, all energy should be directed at guiding our people to intensify our campaign as scripted and not to any bogus parade or grandstanding anchored on deceit. This is coming from NINA's Secretariat today, March 16, 2022. This has been your guy, Stephen. Remember the fraudulent constitutional amendment that was initiated by the National Assembly in conjunction with the presidency? It was all fraud. It was all, cooked up to conceal something else. Pay attention to the details here. For all their jokes are getting exposed as they are coming out, they are getting destroyed. Just hear it from Tony Nadi of NINA's Secretary General.
Continued in this push to constitutional amendment in a manner that is loaded with all kinds of things. Of course, it was their knee-jerk reaction to the constitutional force majeure, the union dispute declared on the 20th of the 16th of December in 2020. That was how it was initiated. But what we see now is that in the midst of the long list of matters that they have slated for their so-called amendment, they managed to smuggle in something none of you will have imagined was their purpose for pursuing the entire amendment process. Just like in the Obasanjo's third-term campaign, it was because he wanted to remove the term limit in the Constitution that he initiated the whole long list of amendments that looked all so beautiful until that one item was identified and it scuttled the entire process. This 2022 Constitution Amendment round is targeted at paving a clear pathway for how the Ruga that the Fulani have been targeting across the whole country can be institutionalized via the Constitution, Constitutional Amendment. How have they, structured it? The so-called local government autonomy, by which the finance of the local government is supposed to be coming straight to them from the federal government or the sharing in Abuja. One side of the story, which is the beautiful side, is that, it is to, curb the corruption that have been introduced to local government funds by the governors who steal from it. Nobody is thinking about how to curb the heavy corruption that is going on in Abuja. It is the one of local government that has become more important. Accountability. Everybody, the union, Nigerian Union of Local Government Employees are rejoicing that all will be well. That's one side of the story, that is all going to get well and development will come to local government. But their purpose is to take control of your communities by being directly in charge of the local governments, because in that direct allocation to local governments, INEC will take over the function of conducting election into local governments. So basically what they are doing, what that amendment will do, is to remove the governors from the equation so that the federal government that is under the exclusive control of the Fulani in all its tiers, in all its departments and arms, will now be in charge of your local government, meaning your communities. And when INEC, when federal government, when Abuja is the one selecting or processing who will be council chairman in all the 704 local government areas, and Abuja is the one to transmit money that is allocation to them every month, the governors are no longer able to meddle with it. It is whatever Abuja wants that will happen in your communities. That's where we've landed. If nothing happens now to halt the journey to this, to the conclusion of this amendment exercise. All the other things they put, Nina's already answered them. Nina's already told everybody that the issues to be addressed in Nigeria, the constitutional dispute on the table, is not one for National Assembly to meddle in. They are just committing treason against the rest of us for stepping into our sovereignties, to now be the one discussing our constitution. Constitution making, the mandate of National Assembly is limited to law making. It doesn't extend to constitution making. Constitution making requires constituent powers that are exclusive to the constituents. It is the units that could have been countries of their own that will have to discuss on how to form a union. That is where the power to make constitution comes from. The lawyers in the land, we want everybody to confront the lawyers they know in their own areas. Anywhere you find any lawyer in Nigeria, especially the ones who go to the TV to deceive people about all kinds of things. Section 14(2)(a) of that constitution, even as bad as it is, admits, confesses that sovereignty belongs to the people, from whom government, through that constitution, derives all its powers and authority. There's no other way. Like the memo and articles of a company is the exclusive business of the owners of the company. The owners of this enterprise are the Yoruba that could be a country of 60 million people, or the eastern side that could be a country of 70 million people, or the middle belt that could be a country of 40, 50 million people. Those are the ones who have to come to submit their sovereignties and then decide the terms on how they want to relate. And so the National Assembly already know that they do not have constituent powers to either make or remake our constitution. But the force behind that National Assembly at this time is the caliphate that wants to take over your lands to now establish the aruga that you've been blocking them from doing. And so it is by taking direct charge of the local government that they are going to be able to do that. What can we do now? Because it's one thing to get to know about a problem and to get another to find solution. Ninas has a solution, but we are time bound if we have to save ourselves from this impending calamity. That solution is this. The process of amendment, as you can see in the Constitution, if we go to check, the process of amendment does not begin and end in the National Assembly. The state assemblies, 2/3 of the states, let us listen carefully. The key to our salvation right now, the key to halting the amendment process, the same way the third term was shut down in Obasanjo's presidency, we are able to shoot down this round of amendment to save ourselves from falling into an irreversible situation in which our land now belongs to these invaders. And so the solution to the problem at this time is that because the requirement for completing that amendment process involves the concurrence of no less than 2/3 of the states of Nigeria, that are 6 states, so 24 states must agree with the National Assembly whenever they finish collating what they have approved for amendment. The way to scuttle that movement to that amendment is that the state assemblies must know that it is only if they vote yes for these amendments that it will sail through. And so Ninas is challenging the state assemblies of the South and of the Middle Belt, all of the state assemblies. And it's in that same regard, calling in the governors. The governors of the states, they know how they do their business in their states. They know how they collaborate with their state assemblies for all the other things they've been doing. This is now an emergency. The governors of those states, the state assemblies of those states of the South and the Middle Belt, because this is now a caliphate agenda that is being driven through the National Assembly in the name of the Constitution. And so, NINAS is inviting the state assemblies to wake up and block any possibility of passing, in terms of concurrence, the resolution that will support this amendment that the National Assembly has processed for this round. Let us forget all the things that may look like improvement, which they've done. Everything they move to the concurrent list in the amendments they've done. If you go and read, you will see that in that concurrence list, the federal government still has an upper hand. If the federal government has any interest in the subject matter, the federal government will over.
Basically, the amendment was not done in good faith, and there is nothing that it is targeted at other than entrenching the Fulani in our towns and villages and stopping them, as has been pointed out, will be effected at the state assemblies across the South and the Middle Belt. Their plan will crash just like Obasanjo's ill-fated third-term agenda failed. So also would the evils of current rulers, occupiers of our homelands will fail because they are not acting in good faith. There's a lot of evil in their plans and they will crash.
They could not see these traits in our ancestors. They concluded that they had been blessed with enough slave labor created by the gods to fuel and power their empire. Consequently, while carrying Bible on one hand, as they walked our ancestors like ox, even to death, they felt no guilt. When they assassinated our leaders, loot and impoverished the wealthy African continent, it was not a matter of conscience, for the gods chose Africa for slavery and exploitation, according to Greek philosophy. Similarly, behind Fulani victories, actions, and relationships are leadership, beliefs, and practices passed down generations as follows. A commitment to the territorial agenda of Usman Dan Fodio shapes their political agenda and aspirations. Nigeria is considered their great-grandfather's inheritance. A strongly held belief that with Arab blood, they are superior to other African tribes, second-rate citizens to be used for the good of the Fulani man. A culture of revenge killings that every Fulani, including elites in high places, subscribe to passionately. A duty to learn the languages of others for infiltration and economic, political, and religious advantages. The native language Fulfulde is reserved for planning and execution of policies and therefore rarely spoken in the presence of others. Now, a culture of unity, no public criticism or breaking ranks, both in good deeds and execution of anarchy, deceit, and chaos. Mastery of creative survival strategies, very tight-lipped, secretive, calculating, patient, and tough-minded. Yes, knowing when to sue for peace and when to crush the enemies. Cultivating corrupt satellites and saboteurs in every ethnic nationality, while politically or militarily annihilating the true leaders. Awareness of own limitations too. Yes, they do. They're no good at frontal wars. Therefore, deceit, sabotage, and sudden killings in large numbers, particularly at night, is the preferred way to fight a war and drill fears into host communities. A well-developed medium of unhindered, effective, and mass communication, mostly Fulani-led. What are they? The mosques and radio. Though considered by many as callous, some mindless and heartless, they are hardly remorseful. Now, these beliefs and practices condition the Fulanis to believe entitled to lead or rule wherever they are, regardless of comparative intelligence and capability of their host communities. The born to rule ideology. That is how the Fulanis conditioned indigenous black Africans of today's northern states for more than a century. To conquer the South and Middle Belt, Jihad faced stiff resistance, so they opted for patience and intelligence gathering. It delivered years of endless dividends. They discovered that Southern and Middle Belt political elites think along party lines. Fulani elites think along ethnic lines. You can see the difference. They discovered that Southerners and Middle Belts are treacherous, corrupt, and littered with potential saboteurs. Their strategy to get on the ladder is to sacrifice their people and religious values. The Fulanis used these weaknesses with ruthless wisdom. For example, according to Governor Ahmed Sani Yerima, I love that man, Governor Peter Orderly aspired for president, squandered River State money on northern emirs and northern opinion leaders. At the end, he failed. Rotimi Amechi is lobbying to be the next vice president in 2023. He is completing the biggest rail and road line into Niger Republic, while the roads in the south are impassable. He will fail in the end. James Ibori wanted to be vice president. Delta State Liaison Office in Abuja became an ATM for northern PDP members. At the end, he failed and imprisoned. President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan postponed South-South development in pursuit of a second term, rehabilitated the Amajuris and MS palaces, built Abuja Kaduna railway line and universities. At the end, the Northern INEC chairman he appointed dismissed him from office. Now watch this. In recent times, for 2023 presidential ambition, in glorying fire victims of the Adeniji Adele Market, Lagos, Bola Tinubu donated 50 million to Katsina Market, ravaged by fire. He will fail. Ignoring market fires in the southeast, Nyesom Wike, for political ambition, donated 500 million to reconstruct Sokoto Central Market. He will fail too. The Fulani race, through leadership, organization, and unity of purpose, have scored successes never possible elsewhere on the African continent. For example, in the period of military dictatorship, through the influence of their emirs, they ensured the best of everything. Today, the Federal Civil Service, NNPC, CBN, and NPA workforce are dominated and controlled by the Fulanis, though not as qualified as their southern counterparts. Though no seashore or oil wells in the north, they are in control of all seaports, the NNPC, and oil wells. Though the poorest region in Nigeria, they are in control of taxes, industries, and revenues generated in the south. Clever stuff. Though a minority and less educated compared to the south, they are in total control of the presidency, Senate, judiciary, and the military, the police, the Air Force, civil defense, and immigration. They successfully nurtured a politically aware and active Fulani race, such that on polling day, rain or shine, even the handicapped, sick, starving, underage, and elderly turn out to vote for political power. Southern professors and uneducated professionals maintain criminal silence with the hope of attracting appointments from the Fulani-led administration. The Southern politicians jostling to be president in 2023 have also been subtly subdued into acquiescence in order to prove to the Fulani leadership that they will be worthy partners if allowed to mount the presidency. Now, hopefully, figure out why the Fulani and their leadership are not moved by accusations of brutality, insensitivity, carnage, and illegal occupation of lands in Nigeria. It is worth noting that the Fulani's practice of borderless global citizenship, proclaimed by Governor Bala Mohammed, will never apply to Arab African countries like Tunisia, Morocco, and Egypt, and will not apply to Europe and America. These are superior races. You can now appreciate the wisdom in General Sue's words. And you have just witnessed the handwork of a true and patriotic leadership. You may not like the sight, sound, taste, and smell of the outcomes. However, be bold to acknowledge the genius in the Fulani leadership. They are not our enemies, but aggressive competitors on a mission. That's my expectation for a true Igbo leadership. In part 2, I will address the failures of Igbo leadership and propose a way forward. Thank you.
In response to diverse comments relating to the challenge of defeating, overcoming, and ousting of the 1999 Constitution, which directly chains us down into the Nigerian Union and which render every one of us slaves in our homeland, the following clarifications have become necessary from NINAS. Number 1. In the push to liberate ourselves and our homeland from the union of debt and bondage that unitary Nigeria has become for its constituent components, the takeoff point is to zoom in on the two fundamentally false claims in the preamble to the 1999 Constitution. A. We, the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, having firmly and solemnly resolved to live in unity as one indivisible and indissoluble nation under God, and B. Do hereby make, enact, and give to ourselves the following Constitution. 2. Going by the contents of Decree number 24 of 1999, by which the 1999 Constitution was promulgated and imposed by Abdul Salam Abubakar's military junta, printed in error inside the 1999 Constitution itself by divine providence, the aforementioned two false claims that we, the people, agreed to form a union and that we made the Constitution by which we will cohabit as one political union is exposed, thus rendering the entire 1999 Constitution an irredeemable fraud and forgery. Those two self-evident and irrefutable falsehoods, which constitute the sole foundation upon which the 1999 Constitution stands, holds the key to our extrication from the union of debt the world calls Nigeria. And this was the reason we drew up a 20-year plan within the first year of the imposition of the 1999 Constitution to rally a countrywide consensus to as fixed yet and completely as the 1999 Constitution, thereby removing the basis of the Nigerian Union itself and safely precipitating a union reconstruction dictated by our freed sovereignties and the self-determination imperatives for trapped constituent components. 4. The 2007 challenge against the legitimacy, not legality, of the 1999 Constitution to lay the foundation for the current onslaught against the 1999 Constitution by constituent components of Nigeria that want out of the union of debt. 5. Unfortunately for the custodians and enforcers of unitary Nigeria, even with their best efforts to stop precedents, that suit of 2007 achieved its main objective, which is the delegitimization of the 1999 Constitution on the ground of its fraudulent basis, bringing us to where, as part of our liberation campaign, we begin to openly label the unitary Nigeria defined by the 1999 Constitution as a fraud and the Nigerian project as criminal enterprise. I must add here that some friends have rightly described Nigeria as a crime scene. You know, a crime scene where murder or even multiple murder has taken place. That best describes current state of Nigeria. Accusing the operators of the Nigeria state of committing treason against the rest of us and insisting that the document must be decommissioned wholesale. 6. The only major task left to decapitate that unitary Nigeria and free its trapped constituent components is to halt the march to the next renewal exercise of the life of that defeated 1999 Constitution by way of the national election slated for 2023. If we do this task, we get free. If we don't, we sink deeper into the caliphate bondage by renewing and reinforcing the very instrument by which we are enslaved. This was written by Tony Nnadi, and he's a co-convener Nigeria Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination, NINAS. There is more coming to reinforce this position, both from Femi Falana and from Dr. Nyanwodo, the former president of Ohanese and Igbo.
We cannot make this a regular phenomenon. You must embark on a holistic amendment of the Constitution, a holistic review, because what they are calling the Constitution, the 1999 Constitution, is Decree number 24 of 1999. Constitution of Nigeria, promulgation, Decree number 24 of 1999, signed by General Abdusalami Abubakar. You know, so it's not our Constitution. So what is the problem with saying, let all interest groups be given the opportunity to put their demands across, who then write a Constitution of Nigeria, which should be enacted and made by the Nigerian people. But how can you be amending a military decree and you are selling, and you are deceiving Nigerians that we are amending the Constitution of the country?
It's all based on fraud. There's nothing that is being done in sincerity. Like nothing is being done to be done properly. Rather, everything is being done in a crooked way, lies, deceiving, cheating, misleading people. And they think that they are doing a yeoman's job. They are building a country that is the foundation is faulty, and they keep building. They keep deceiving themselves, pretending like something is going on while nothing is really going on.
49 people selected to write a constitution, wrote a constitution. 40.
That's Nyanwodo speaking on the fact that there was no debate, there was no ratification, nothing for the current 1999 Constitution, and he worked in that government.
People in the Supreme Military Council promulgated a constitution for us. Under General Abubakar, government in which I served, I was in executive council. I never saw the draft constitution, and I was Minister of Information. It was my responsibility to publicize it to the country. On the day of swearing in of Obasanjo, we didn't have a copy of the constitution. I didn't know who was printing it, and my ministry was supposed to pay for the printing. And Obasanjo was sworn on a constitution that had not been read by anybody. And the National Assembly could not be constituted until 4 days after he swearing in, because there was no clean copy of the constitution. You cannot build on quicksand. In the country cannot live on falsehood.
No foundation that is led.
Continued in this push to constitution amendment in a manner that is loaded with all kinds of things. Of course, it was their knee-jerk reaction to the constitutional force majeure, you know, the union dispute declared on the 20th of the 16th of December in 2020. That was how it was initiated. But what we see now is that in the midst of the long list of matters that they have slated for their so-called amendment, they managed to smuggle in something none of you will have imagined was their purpose for pursuing the entire amendment process. Just like in the Obasanjo's third-term campaign, it was because he wanted to remove the term limit in the Constitution that he initiated the whole long list of amendments that looked all so beautiful until that one item was identified and it scuttled the entire process. This 2022 Constitution Amendment round is targeted at paving a clear pathway for how the Ruga that the Fulani have been targeting across the whole country can be institutionalized via the Constitution, Constitutional Amendment. How have they, structured it? The so-called local government autonomy, by which the finance of the local government is supposed to be coming straight to them from the federal government or the sharing in Abuja. One side of the story, which is the beautiful side, is that it is to curb the corruption that have been introduced to local government funds by the governors who steal from it. Nobody is thinking about how to curb the heavy corruption that is going on in Abuja. It is the one of local government that has become more important. Accountability. Everybody, the union, Nigerian Union of Local Government Employees are rejoicing that all will be well. That's one side of the story, that is all going to get well and development will come to local government. But their purpose is to take control of your communities by being directly in charge of the local governments, because in that direct allocation to local governments, INEC will take over the function of conducting election into local governments. So basically what they are doing, what that amendment will do, is to remove the governors from the equation so that the federal government that is under the exclusive control of the Fulani in all its tiers, in all its departments and arms, will now be in charge of your local government, meaning your communities. And when INEC, when federal government, when Abuja is the one selecting or processing who will be council chairman in all the 704 local government areas, and Abuja is the one to transmit money that is allocation to them every month, the governors are no longer able to meddle with it. It is whatever Abuja wants that will happen in your communities. That's where we've landed. If nothing happens now to halt the journey to this, to the conclusion of this amendment exercise. All the other things Nina's already answered them. Nina's already told everybody that the issues to be addressed in Nigeria, the constitutional dispute on the table, is not one for National Assembly to meddle in. They are just committing treason against the rest of us for stepping into our sovereignties, to now be the one discussing our constitution. Constitution making, the mandate of National Assembly is limited to law making. It doesn't extend to constitution making. Constitution making requires constituent powers that are exclusive to the constituents. It is the units that could have been countries of their own that will have to discuss on how to form a union. That is where the power to make constitution comes from. The lawyers in the land, we want everybody to confront the lawyers they know in their own areas. Anywhere you find any lawyer in Nigeria, especially the ones who go to the TV to deceive people about all kinds of things. Section 14(2)(a) of that constitution, even as bad as it is, admits, confesses that sovereignty belongs to the people, from whom government, through that constitution, derives all its powers and authority. There's no other way. Like the memo and articles of a company is the exclusive business of the owners of the company. The owners of this enterprise are the Yoruba that could be a country of 60 million people, or the eastern side that could be a country of 70 million people, or the middle belt that could be a country of 40, 50 million people. Those are the ones who have to come to submit their sovereignties and then decide the terms on how they want to relate. And so the National Assembly already know that they do not have constituent powers to either make or remake our constitution. But the force behind that National Assembly at this time is a caliphate that wants to take over your lands, to now establish the Aruga that you've been blocking them from doing. And so it is by taking direct charge of the local government that they are going to be able to do that. What can we do now? Because it's one thing to get to know about the problem and another to find solution. Ninas has a solution but we are time-bound if we have to save ourselves from this impending calamity. That solution is this. The process of amendment, as you can see in the Constitution, if we go to check, the process of amendment does not begin and end in the National Assembly. The state assemblies, 2/3 of the states, let us listen carefully. The key to our salvation right now, the key to halting the amendment process, the same way the third term was shut down in Obasanjo's presidency, we are able to shoot down this round of amendment to save ourselves from falling into an irreversible situation in which our land now belongs to these invaders. And so the solution to the problem at this time is that because the requirement for completing that amendment process involves the concurrence of no less than 2/3 of the states of Nigeria, that are 6 states, so 24 states must agree with the National Assembly whenever they finish collating what they have approved for amendment. The way to scuttle that movement to that amendment is that the state assemblies must know that it is only if they vote yes for these amendments that it will sail through. And so NINAS is challenging the state assemblies of the South and of the Middle Belt, all of the state assemblies. And it's in that same regard, calling in the governors of the states. They know how they do their business in their states. They know how they collaborate with their state assemblies for all the other things they've been doing. This is now an emergency. The governors of those states, the state assemblies of those states of the South and the Middle Belt, because this is now a caliphate agenda that is being driven through the National Assembly in the name of the Constitution. And so NINAS is inviting the state assemblies to wake up and block any possibility of passing, in terms of concurrence, the resolution that will support this amendment that the National Assembly has processed for this round. Let us forget all the things that may look like improvement, which they've done. Everything they move to the concurrent list in the amendments they've done. If you go and read, you will see that in that concurrence list, the federal government still has an upper hand. If the federal government has any interest in the subject matter, the federal government will.
Here is NINA's press statement on March 1st, today, 2022. All amendments to the 1999 Constitution will go down with that Constitution. A note of caution to the legislative conclave at the refugee camp of regional renegades. NINA's Secretariat, March 1st, 2022. 1. In the face of the union dispute declared December 16, 2020 by the Nigeria Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination, NINAS, on account of long-standing grave constitutional grievances emanating from the Caliphate-imposed Unitary Constitution of Nigeria 1999, the participation of the members of the Nigerian National Assembly from the Alliance territories of the South and Middle Belt in the ongoing Constitution Amendment exercise of 2022 is tantamount to an affront and a defiance of the sovereignty will of their people, who have repudiated the fraudulent 1999 Constitution as the basis of the Nigerian Union. 2. Let it be recalled that by a public statement of February 25, 2022, titled, "No quantum of amendments will save the 1999 Constitution from going down wholesale, nor can amendments confer legitimacy on that fraud of 99. NINAS had dismissed the 2022 round of Constitution Amendment charade of the National Assembly as an exercise in futility and a treasonous affront on the people, being done in usurpation of the sovereignty of the people. 3. The February 25, 2022 NINAS public statement was to remind the errant legislators in clear terms that the contention of their constituents and as encapsulated in the December 16, 2020 2020 Constitutional Force Majeure Proclamation is that the peoples of the Nigeria have not agreed upon nor made any union constitution contrary to the false claims in the preamble of the 1999 Constitution. 4. For the sake of clarity and emphasis, it is the contention of NINAS that the refusal of the operators of the disputed Nigeria state to first engage this incurable fundamental flaw is now being compounded by the so-called amendments to the 1999 Constitution, since the legislative mandate of the National Assembly is limited to lawmaking and does not extend to constitution-making, which required constituent powers to reside exclusively with the people as an incident of their sovereignty. It is in this sense that NINAS views the amendments exercise as an arrogant affront to the people, an assault of the sovereignty of the people, and such a dangerous defiance of the sovereign will of the people, capable of triggering unpleasant consequences from their own people being killed, impoverished, and traumatized under that obnoxious 1999 Constitution. 5. Whilst reiterating the postulations and warnings of the February 25, 2022 NINAS public statement, the purpose of this short statement today is to remind the senators and members of the House of Representatives from the Alliance territories, that is, South and the Middle Belt of Nigeria, who will be voting in the 2022 Constitution Amendment charade, that the growls of the people you claim to represent will not be about whether or how you vote, but about why you partake in a constitutional amendment exercise that reinforces the hijack and confiscation of the sovereignty of the people you claim to represent by an illicit caliphate-controlled federal government presiding over the extermination and impoverishment of the same people you claim to represent. Number 6, ahead of the State Assembly's concurrence and ratification processes for the current Constitution Amendment circus, and ahead of the doomed 2023 election ritual, let it be heard loud and clear that the Nigerian Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination insists that in place of election, the operators of the distressed Nigerian Federation must now initiate a transitioning process to undertake the inevitable constitutional reconstruction in redress of the grave constitutional grievances outlined in the December 16, 2020 Joint Multi-Regional Constitutional Force Majeure Proclamation issued by NINAS, particularly in the 5-point proposition regarding sequence and modalities. This is from the NINAS Secretariat, March 1st, 2022.
In national politics, there are no friends or enemies, only friends, unquote, and enemies, unquote. France was such a friend, unquote. The reason for its support, I believe this is referring to Biafra, was, of course, not philanthropy, but competition with the co-colonialist UK. Not to forget that and how France had plundered Haiti, including African countries, to this day. France is still doing it. But hey, France in the League of Powers was the only friend of Biafra. Friend, unquote. Image of a music cover containing the names of Biafra and Nixon. The name reference Nixon probably refers critically to the Nixon scandal. On the other hand, it was President Nixon who credibly expressed heartfelt regret about Biafra in 1968. However, due to the constraints of the presidency, he could not or would not do anything. There is a note here. Note evenpast.org/foreign policy from candidate to President Richard Nixon and the lesson of Biafra. Since then, the deep state in the US, the Western neoliberal plunder oligarchy, has shown only cold disinterest in the southern Nigeria. Don't mix up deep state with government or population. During the Biafra War, millions of whites were affected and supported Biafra through associations, etc. But the deep state prevented the government from doing the same. The same superpower, the US and middle powers, hereinafter referred to as the powers for short, are now demanding your commitment to Ukraine. As usual, they want everything from you and give you nothing except the caliphate. All the powers and their systemic media system continues to firmly and effectively suppress your voice during the caliphate consummation in Nigeria, which is still ongoing, I must add. But the same powers want your verbal support for Ukraine. Ukraine. Mafia bosses, oligarchy, right-wing extremists, the social and governmental system as amenable to Western modernization as Afghanistan. Of course, similar things can be said about most post-Soviet states, that is, including Russia, but it is not necessary here because the Western systemic media system already spreads this sufficiently. To be honest, I am not really interested in the world situation or Ukraine. I am not interested in your opinion about Ukraine. Please, no comments on the situation in Ukraine, but I'm interested to see how to proceed in your very own matter, Nigeria. I register with astonishment the extent of the Ukraine expertise of my friends from South and Southeast. I am saddened to see that the same expertise is hardly applied to the situation in southern Nigeria. Don't let a commitment be extorted from you for free in support of Ukraine. Demand value for money. Use your brains. Russia was supplier of MiG planes against Biafra. Well, Ukraine, like Russia, was part of the same former Soviet Union which supplied the MiG fighters flown by Egyptian pilots to the Caliphate for the Caliphate to destroy Biafra. The Soviets were no more system friends or enemies of Biafra than several other powers. All the powers considered pros and cons, and in the end, almost all, example, UK and Soviets, were united for the destruction of Biafra. This is correct. And I must mention at this point that Bernard Warner is right on the mark here. He knows exactly what he's talking about. This is our living history. We are alive. We are part of this history. At an earlier stage of Ojukwu's negotiation with the Soviets, Soviet support for Biafra with arms supplies and probably diplomatic support was considered if Biafra would make some parts of the oil fields available to the Soviets. Ojukwu had declined. The rest is history. Biafra's only friend from the League of Powers was France. France secretly armed Biafra. France even let its aircraft carrier pass in front of Biafra from Gabon as a symbolic support. The picture is included on this post. If you still want to unthinkingly express your emotions in media support, forget Ukraine. Forget Ukraine and a fan club found by France. Better still, forget emotional underpinnings in the friend-enemy scheme. Of course, you can curry favor with the powers that be. Unfortunately, it doesn't help. But the powers have more experience with this behavior and your partly unconscious motives than you think. You will only be heard if you have something to offer. The Caliphate knows the game very well. It's already well taken into account. At all these international conferences in which Nigeria participates, the Caliphate Fulani minister is actually the decisive international partner. And so the Caliphate can, of course, very well support Ukraine verbally and wallow in the goodwill of the Western neoliberal plunder oligarchy. For the people in the South and especially Southeast, the same support for Ukraine brings nothing at all. There is simply no quid pro quo that the Western powers would want to or need to give in return.
There's something that doesn't make sense. And I've been deliberating on this and wonder if other people are thinking about this. What is happening to the Southeast? I was in the Southeast for over 5 weeks between December and February 2022, barely last week. And I saw firsthand a ruined environment. Southeast has essentially been destroyed by certain criminals that claim to be fronting for the indigenous people of Biafra. They are not from, like they go to different states to cause trouble. These people have been mentioned to have come from Ebonyi State. And so they make sure there is no business activity in Onitsha, at Aba, at everywhere in Enugu, Nnewi. They kill people at marketplaces. Who imported these people who are doing this to Ndi Igbo? They placed a lockdown that lasted for 4 days. And not once did Nnamdi Kanu stood up in court and say it openly in the court to the hearing of anybody that he does not support the group that is doing this. IPOB has gone into denial by disowning whoever is doing the group that is doing this to Ndi Igbo. I did share a few pictures of where people were walking across the bridge at Onitsha from Opiweka across to Asaba on Sunday evening because the road was completely locked down. You can't drive through. So that you can continue on your way to wherever you're going in that vicinity. Now, because of what? Nnamdi Kanu had case. Monday, there was probably a sit at home. Then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Kanu has court appearances at Abuja. And so, his own people, the Messiah, is appearing before Herod's court. And the disciples had to actually stab themselves, fall on their swords. Literally, the disciples of Jesus would have all committed suicide because Jesus was held and being tried. Is Nnamdi Kanu greater than Jesus Christ? Why are they destroying Alibo? Who is this Ima Powerful? Ima Powerful should show up. Let him show his show his face. Let's know who he is. Where does he live? Why are they releasing statements to rule our people, controlling the mind of brainwashed people who have no job? It appears there is a declaration of class war in Alibo. That some people, some criminal elements within the Igbo system are going to declare war on the rest. They want to make Aba uninhabitable. They want to turn Onitsha into the new Aba, where they are doing all sorts of destructive activities. And so, if these people are really not from IPOB, like the IPOB has been denying and continue repeating issuing orders, they continue to issue order and deny the consequences, the result. If indeed it's not their members, let them tell us who they are. And the state has failed our people. Because you never hear any governor maintaining appearances, speaking to their people, telling them, look, making sure that the current confusion that is called Nigeria is providing policing services for our people instead of extorting people on the road. They are essentially begging money. And these days they are not as aggressive as they used to be, but they are still begging for money. And you pity them. When you look at them, you know that they are under-enumerated. They are not being paid enough. Their bosses are stealing their money. I have had this said at the defense headquarters, that the money that is being budgeted for the police does not get to the police. It stays at the office of the Inspector General of Police. Because of what? Nigeria chose to be operating one national police. One united Nigeria, one national police. They forget that the world has moved on. People are now using local, municipal police. A lot of provinces doesn't have police. So they use the central police, RCMP. They are professional officers. They show up, they provide their policing services until the city becomes strong enough to provide their own policing services, to handle their own budget. They go to other places. That is how it is done. But Nigeria is running a criminal enterprise that is illegal in a lot of ways. Now, where does it lead Nigeria to? confusion. That's why thieves are running the southeast now, declaring sit at home in the name of supporting Nnamdi Kanu, who is already in court. And we have always insisted that Kanu must get justice. Nigeria must treat Nnamdi Kanu with justice. Nnamdi Kanu, if he has evidence against Nigeria, he should tender it without fear, because the world is watching. What do we get in return from the IPOB? Recklessness on steroids. IPOB, a non-state banned organization, given orders and imposing trade bans, ruling Southeast essentially, provocative. When the fallout comes, cries of innocent Biafrans being harassed will rend the air. Igbos trade in many communities and work in many areas in the north. The process of parting ways with Ariwa is an ongoing process. If the members of this renegade group decide to stop Hausa Nama, then they can do so by flooding the market with their own locally bred cows in all states. Where they are not able to do so, then they should let those making sure their Fulani cow grazers don't step into private farms continue with their business. Continue with their business. We must insist that no cow should go into private properties. That's fair. So long as they don't encroach into other people's properties, that's their business. People have to do their business until we're able to produce enough Muturu cows, the big ones, those big, beautiful cows that are not as violent as the Fulani cow. Why then do we try to antagonize our people by telling people that by this time of the year they will stop eating cow meat? Are you selling chicken, or you're producing fish, or what are you doing? IPOB members, I don't know anyone that has any farm, animal farm. Let them showcase it. Let them share. Let them share. Let's see if they have it. Why seek to destroy our people? I don't hear Ohaneze, any faction, saying anything now. IPOB or other elements must cease and desist from engaging in violent acts against anyone or groups in the Southeast. What they are now doing is distorting real work ongoing to get Nigeria fully sorted out. We can send the Fulani and their Igbo partners packing by going into cow business ourselves. Grow more cows of the big Efi Igbo type. Price it lower and kill the Hausa Nama businesses. And we will send these terrorists going. They will go home. Once we do like that, they will be gone. You know? But we cannot destroy our place. We cannot destroy our place because of Nnamdi Kanu and a few renegades, a few crooks who think that they are running our place now. Like, what is going on? We can do this for a number of years, and those that foreign cow importers will either join the Mutru cow business or find another thing to do. We can go after this in a more organized manner. Let the IPOB go into farming. Farming of all kinds. Vegetable, anything. Or they should just leave Alibo in peace, or relocate to the Ariwa, or live altogether for Cameroon, where they are fighting also for breakup. This IPOB should go to Cameroon and help Cameroonians. When they finish, then they can know what to do. They should leave Alibo. I mean, this has been your guy, Stephen, speaking, just expressing how frustrated and weak I am with Nigeria. Nigeria is such a sad commentary on what a country is supposed to be. Very shameful, very sad country. The rise of ethnic nationalism in Nigeria. The state of consciousness is a good place for the living to be found in. Catholic Bishop Matthew Hassan Cooker used this word in the text of his recent lecture where, while appearing to be a unionist, he hoped that despite the unfolding signs, Nigeria would remain as one united country. In his paper he wrote, "Nigerians have continued to seek new identities as a means of coping with life. What we are witnessing by way of a surge in ethnic, religious, cultural, class, social forms of consciousness. What we are witnessing by way of a surge in ethnic, religious, cultural, class, social forms of consciousness. Consciousness is defined as the state of being aware of things and responding to that knowledge. Bishop Kukah went on to say that this consciousness among Nigerians had arisen because of frustrations and the terrible state of the country, blaming it on the moral caliber of those in leadership position. As a leader himself in the Catholic Church, was Bishop Kukah not told about the very important meeting convened by Vision Africa and the Global Peace Foundation on 13th December 2021, where the 1999 Constitution was denounced as the source of Nigeria's woes? The Christian faith was represented there in the person of Reverend Pam Yakubu, Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Christian Pilgrim Commission. Also present were former President Olusegun Obasanjo, the Sultan of Sokoto, Sheikh Gumi, Gani Adams, former Governor Obong Victor Atta, Madam Ankyo Briggs, and many others. A communique was issued after this key meeting, identifying the source of agitations, conflict, and violence in Nigeria, which included the 1999 Constitution described as oligomilitary in nature, and which does not represent the collective interest of Nigerians. The communique went on to say that the 1999 Constitution does not embody the principles of justice, fairness, and equality on which every democracy is founded. Thus, it does not fully protect the rights and interests of Nigeria's diverse constituencies. Consciousness is rising among ordinary Nigerians that the illegitimate 1999 Constitution foisted upon them is a hoax that is the source of their miseries. They are waking up to know that a constitution is actually a union agreement, and that the one creating and upholding unitary Nigeria is illegitimate and therefore does not deserve their allegiance. This consciousness is leading to another consciousness, that Nigeria is really a multinational country, exactly, that is, made up of many ethnic nations, where each indigenous ethnic nation should have sovereignty in its ancestral space and an inalienable right to self-determination. Knowledge of transforming indigenous peoples to know that they have a right to be safe and contented in their ancestral land, and they are seeing that the forged record 1999 Constitution is what is stopping them from enjoying living in their own homeland. With the knowledge that sovereignty belongs to them comes the rise in ethnic nationalism. In Nigeria's case, nationalism means supporting the political independence of your particular indigenous ethnic nation. Ethnic nationalism is mainly in response to Fulani extremism, their herdsmen trespassing into indigenous people's farms to destroy them, and the slaughter of indigenous peoples by armed Fulani for land grab. All this facilitated by the illegitimate 1999 Constitution. Nigerians had been lulled to sleep, the sleep of the dead, by the elite, the church, mainstream media, NGOs, and CSOs, plus influencers. Now, through the constitutional force majeure proclaimed by the non-violent NINAS movement on December 16th, 2020, to take down the illegitimate 1999 Constitution and fix this West African sub-region using an orderly process, Nigeria can see that a new future is very possible. Each ethnic nation, no matter its population size, can stand tall on its ancestral land with the patriotic vision of my ethnic nation first. It is this newfound ethnic nationalism that ethnic nations can negotiate with compatible neighboring ethnic nations the kind of union, if any, they want to be in, and they can then democratically decide by self-determination referendums whether to recommit to the entity called Nigeria. Ethnic nationalism means sovereignty and self-determination. Those two inalienable rights hijacked by the sham 1999 Constitution. The rising consciousness in Nigerians translates to a rise in ethnic nationalism. Given all that they suffer and the deadly threats they face, indigenous ethnic nations should take back what belongs to them and control their land and their future. Too many Nigerians are languishing away abroad, a significant number without immigration papers to allow them to remain in their host country. And this is all because of the dreaded living conditions that the illegitimate 1999 Constitution brings. Reader or hearer, please let them know that they should no longer be frightened of returning to their ancestral land with the positive force of ethnic nationalism anchored on sovereignty and self-determination. Ethnic nations can work out a pleasant and productive future for themselves. The NINAS movement, that is, the Nigerian Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination movement, has put its propositions on how to get there on the table. For more on the NINAS movement, please visit www.ninasvoice.org. This was written by Ndidi Uwechwe. Thanks for listening.
Port Harcourt, and the black suit all over Port Harcourt. NINAS is sending this message to Port Harcourt and those suffering from the suit in Port Harcourt. Our good friend, Governor Nyesom Wike, has said he has left it to God. But please, we have to take a little more responsibility. God will not come to contest the election in Nigeria so that he can do the things we can do, we should have been doing for ourselves. The suit happening to you in Port Harcourt is coming from the fact that the refineries are on the exclusive list in the 1999 Constitution. Therefore, it is the exclusive business of the federal government to do what they like. And your governor is not in any position to do anything about that. That is what has tied his hands. And so, if you want an end to that suit, you must now step forth to join those who are insisting that that constitution must go down. And the first sign of the first evidence of seriousness, the first evidence of sincerity in that push is that you must be one of those who will say today in 2021 that we will not go to another election under that constitution. That the refineries that are on that exclusive list, see the way it works. The people who sell the 3 million barrels of crude oil that Nigeria sells every day are seated in the comfort of Kano and Sokoto and Maiduguri. You know them. And their sponsors in London and elsewhere. You know them. They don't suffer from any of these things you suffer from. It is because there is this illicit, this bunkering, this kind of let's go take whatever we find and refine by ourselves. That's where the suit is coming from. If that constitution does not go down, that situation will remain like that. The military, we had your governor telling you the other time, I think it was the chief of army staff, there was somebody who was addressing, some people came to visit. All of those on military postings in Port Harcourt, those generals there all have their own refineries and bunkering business, illicit refining, illicit bunkering going on. That's what's going on. Now the people who sell these 3 million barrels of crude oil in the name of federal government of Nigeria are nowhere near where the suit is happening. And if this constitution were to go down and were to unbundle our sovereignties from inside that document, you will immediately resume your right to regulate your environment. That is when your governor or any kind of governance that is in charge of the area will be able to put regulations, something that will, there's nothing they can do now. The people doing it, they know. But the Constitution forbids them from intervening. And you can see it has become a health issue. People are dying in numbers you can't imagine. The stories we hear from the medical people managing that situation is at a pandemic level. So why do we leave it to God to come and do what? When we can say enough of this, when we can say we can proceed under this constitution that prevents us from doing anything at all for ourselves in a situation we can see what the problem is and we have a solution we can apply by ourselves, but the constitution says we cannot apply it. The same thing happening with security is happening with infrastructure, is happening with your electricity, is happening with the suit that is falling, painting Port Harcourt black.
There you have it. What is killing Nigerians is the constitution, the fraudulent constitution of 1999. And until everyone key into this important message, this life-saving, this nation-building, nation restoring message, until we key into it wholehearted like a mass, what is going on will never change. So it is up to the people. Embrace this message, this guide that leads you to somewhere, and save lives, or ignore it and watch the terrible things continue going on. Have a great day. Stephen speaking. In answer to a question on whether Nigerians, Africans look down on other people around the world, black people in North America, like the descendants of those that were stolen from Africa and brought to the New World, which includes Igbo families and Yoruba families, including Ghanaians. Here is what Dr. Okenwa-Nwosu, the Ezudemba of Igboku, had to say. By the way, he's the head of LINAS in the United States. Nigerians don't look down on anyone. They always look up instead. The attitudinal and cultural distinctiveness of Nigerians, especially those residing in the diaspora, has made them not only thrive, but also seem to prevail over other national groups in critical indexes of human endeavor. Within the borders of Nigeria, there are specific ethno-national groups that possess the can-do mentality more than others. The Nigerians who do spectacularly well in the African diaspora and elsewhere overseas originate mostly from these ethnic groups. I must say that it will be much more wonderful if all Nigerians in diaspora, especially the southern and middle belt Nigerians, are keen into what is going on in Nigeria and contributing to the discussion on how to get out of the madness that is called present-day Nigeria through multi-regional binding referendum. Listen to this video, this commentary by some speakers in the United States who are of Nigerian heritage, most likely from the East or Southwest.
Point to that. Do Africans really look down on black American people?
No, I think Africans, I would say specifically for Nigerians. Nigerians are proudful people. We look down on other Nigerians. So it's not even, and it's not even that we're looking down. We're just always looking up. Mm-hmm. And so if you're not in our purview, we don't see you.
That's a word.
So it's perspective shift. And so for us, like I tell people all the time, like, because it used to be like when I would meet other African Americans, like they would know nothing about me. Like, oh, so you African? So what, you think you better than us? And I'd be like, listen, man, we think we better than everybody. Because my father would be like, if the black man does it, do it better. If the white man does it, surpass him. If the Asian man does it, finish him. It's just like, okay. Like, that's like the household I grew up in. It's like nobody's your competition except for the person that you're trying to advance over. So it's just like, who is in your purview? Get them out. Like, why are they even there? Like, why did you even give them an opportunity to be better than you?
That's the mentality you should have, though.
And so that's why I'd be tripping when people were like, oh, so you smart? Yes. I worked hard to be smart. Like, getting a B, I would cry. Because my mom would literally be like, so the person who got an A, what were they doing? And why were you not doing it? Like, I don't know. They just know math better than me, Mom. But it was just like, that's unacceptable. We came over here and gave you opportunities, so do better. And it was like, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
And so I think to have the perspective of, do you think you better, or do you think, it's just like, no, I'm just trying to be my best. And if everybody had the I'm trying to be my best mentality, we wouldn't be worried about who thinks they're better or not.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Pennants were presented to each other by the opposing captains before the start of the game between the Nigerian Football Association team and Marine Crosby. The Nigerians spurn the use of football boots, but they have no qualms about taking on a team which uses them. When the game got going, the crowd of 6,000 could make interesting comparisons between the two styles. Nigerians played fast football and shot very hard indeed. In fact, they kicked the ball so hard and so successfully that they won by 5 goals to 2. Hardly a barefoot shuffle.
I'm like Nigerians to white people. Nigerians don't tolerate any nonsense that comes their way. And that's why there are not so many white people in Nigeria. Because they think Nigerians are rude people. They think the Nigerians are not polite people to work with. But that is not the case. The Nigerians don't tolerate nonsense. And every time they answer you, you will think they are fighting. They are not fighting. They are emphatic. They know what they want.
That's the factor. Third, Nigerian Americans are one of the most educated groups in America, according to a study by Rice University. They only make up 1% of African Americans, Nigerians, 1%. Yet they are represented at the Harvard Business School at a rate of 25% of black students. So no wonder they are out earning whites, Nigerian Americans. I didn't know any of this, and I know you did.
Very resilient people.
Yeah, look up on the speaker for this one. I'm on Nigeria. Oh, it's your boy, John Mix, baby. Terry G.
Indeed, Nigerians are 1% of the African American population, but they attract the hatred. I must use this word, hatred, to describe the kind of expression that is coming from some learned African Americans against Africans in the United States. And that comment is actually directed to Nigerians specifically, even though the professor, Jeremiah Small, mentioned Ghana, Nigeria, and one other country. But their anger, their frustration is usually directed at Nigerians. Would God that those Nigerians would actually pay attention to what is going on to their own country, to which they are actually first or second immigrants. I mean, yeah, they are probably first or second immigrants in the United States or Canada. If only they can pay attention a little bit, they will make a lot of impact, a lot of impact, positive impact in arresting the drift going on in Nigeria. Thanks for listening to the Lower Niger Territory Radio. It's been your guy, Stephen.
We came out yesterday, May the 2nd, to a statement purportedly coming out from one Peter Afunanya that says is a spokesman of DSS, threatening everybody who says who is doing anything that would threaten the unity of Nigeria and the sovereignty of Nigeria and government, and also all such nonsense. Well, I would be surprised if it came from DSS, because one cannot trust what we find on social media these days. But if anybody is still at that mundane level of thought of describing self-preservation actions being taken within the rights of self-determination that's inalienable to the constituents of the disputed Federation of Nigeria, because this Constitution 1999, that is a forgery, that has our signature at the base as authorization. As long as that constitution is in place, Nigeria is a disputed project because the people who are purported to have agreed to live together have come forward to say we never met, we never agreed on anything. It is a forgery, it is a fraud against all of us. It is in that kind of setting that one will be addressing on behalf of NINAS, addressing that State Directorate of State Services, DSS, to point them, to explain to them, just in case they didn't know. They should be finding out from their principal what is going on. That is the federal government of Nigeria. They should realize that what the people who are demanding an immediate reconstruction of the constitutional basis of Nigeria, the one they call restructuring, or even the ones that say they are fed up, they want to go to be countries of their own, they are not the ones threatening the unity of Nigeria. The people that are threatening the unity of Nigeria, that are pushing Nigeria towards disintegration in the manner that the Vice President had warned about in September of 2020, are the ones who are holding on to that forgery of a constitution to say we cannot, that Nigeria is non-negotiable and not indivisible and all of that. They are the ones who are refusing to come forward for that imperative of reconstruction for a house that is on the verge of collapse. They are the ones pushing Nigeria towards disintegration, and one will expect that they will, the DSS and all of those who are trying to. The other time it was some semi-literate governors that were talking about people who are doing secession and others who are doing treason. The only secession on the table now are the ones who declare themselves Sharia, who have seceded from the secular union of Nigeria, these 12 states. The only treason on the table now are the ones who are clinging onto the constitution that's a forgery, against the rest of us.
Federation. And do you know that even the constitution that we use today, which is the 1999 constitution, denies what is called in law autochthony. In other words, there is no referendum, there is no plebiscite. The people of Nigeria did not vote to say, this is the constitution we want. It was imposed on us by a military decree, and yet it remains the ground norm. I mean, what a misnomer. We are not in a dictatorship, but we are running a constitution that we didn't vote for. And our administrative units have been carved on the basis of that constitution, supplanting our regional.
The constitution that operates in Nigeria today is a fraudulent, mischievous document foisted on Nigeria by a departing military junta. In fact, it is Decree 24 of 1999, which will have been a mere transitional instrument for governing a country of the stature and standing of Nigeria within the international community. I would have thought that the first item on the agenda of the government that came to power in 1999 was to address the issue of that constitution, its legitimacy. Because, like the Patriots observed, it told a lie against itself by saying that we Nigerians, under God, have agreed to live together, blah, blah, blah. There was no time when we were asked that question. And Nigeria, I believe, still requires what lawyers call an autochthonous constitution. A constitution that that captures the needs and interests of the Nigerians. A constitution that finds legitimacy in the eyes of the citizens, not one handed down from low and high by a military junta.
Our present extant constitution is an imposition of the military. A supreme military council that was not elected by anybody, that did not respect any known parameter in its recruitment except seniority in the army, that was lopsided in terms of its geographical identity of membership, imposed a constitution, enacted it like a legislation. It was not subjected to a plebiscite. It was not subjected to a referendum. In law, you say it's not autochthonous because the people did not agree that the 1999 constitution is their constitution. We didn't vote for its approval. So it's not cognizable in law as a valid constitution. It has been imposed of us by sheer force. And no government has had the courage to subject it to a national plebiscite. And if you do, most Nigerians will say this is not our constitution. We've created local government and states administrative structures that do not obey any known parameter. We've taken away the sovereignty of natural resources from our people and concentrated in an omnibus and amorphous federal government that is characterized by inefficiency over time.
Wole Soyinka, as a man of knowledge, has just expressed the fact, unlike individuals that parade themselves as professors of constitutional law and constitutional lawyers, senior advocates, and the rest, who still continue to defend the 1999 Constitution as if it doesn't matter the source, it doesn't matter that it's a forged document, by claiming that the people made it and it has been shown that the people didn't make it, in a suit that was filed on behalf of Anthony Enaro, Wole Soyinka, Bishop Bonigi, Dokubo Asari, Rafu Wazurike, and a couple of others, Alhaji Yerima Shetima, who just gave that ultimatum. Yeah, he was part of the signatory to the lawsuit that was filed on their behalf by the Secretary General of the Lower Niger Congress.
I dare to tell this nation today that this is the problem. This constitution can never give us progress. This constitution can never give us peace. This constitution can never give us unity. And unfortunately, most of us in this National Assembly, we don't have the spine to face what we need to give this republic to have peace and progress. What do I mean? This constitution has 68 items. 68 on the exclusive list. This constitution has only 12 on the concurrent list. And those 12 are written so nebulously, so fraudulently, that you know that the intention is to even undermine those concurrent lists. The formal name of this republic is Federal Republic of Nigeria. Unfortunately, we don't run a federalist system in Nigeria. Otherwise, what is so unique about all those things that are in the exclusive list? In this chamber, we try to federalize the police system. In this chamber, we failed. Every crime is local. And the solution to every crime is local. The earlier that senators in Nigeria summon the courage to say, we should not continue to deceive ourselves.
Nigeria is threatening everybody and groups. When we lie to ourselves and we're reaping the fruits of lying, we're victims of the lie that we call our own, the social contract, which is another name for the Constitution. We say we in Nigeria give this Constitution to ourselves. We didn't. It was imposed. And it's not working. It's centralized. And the good things of life are not available for Nigerians. And they are crying. And you begin to blame them. You don't blame victims. You blame the system that produced the victims. This Constitution is not made by Nigerians. It's imposed. A federal constitution should be truly a federal constitution. You don't centralize everything. Nobody can fix this system. It's like putting square peg in round hole. It wouldn't work. It's not Buhari's fault, or Jonathan, or the previous ones. They were handed, and still being handed, instruments, i.e. the Constitution, that cannot work the way it is. Let us do an agreement. Constitution is an agreement that we agree to live together by these rules which we would spell out about governance. This current one is a fraudulent one. And it's giving us victimhood because we never did it. And they say we did it. If somebody says you did something that you not do, is that not a lie? We went to court. The case is in court. Praying the court to say, look, the Nigerian people never did it. The court kept adjoining. Part of the problem we have. The case is still in court. Inauro started it. A lot of distinguished men and women up and down this country had their signature there. The case has not been taken.
All right, we'll also anchor at that point. Dr. Amos Akingba is in ADECO and Afenifere chieftain. We appreciate your talking to us this morning.
It's my great pleasure.
To say that Nigeria is a fraudulent country or a joke is an understatement. Countries that produce just one resource or two are doing very well. Countries that are not producing anything, I mean, look at Hong Kong, for example. Hong Kong does not export anything, but Hong Kong is a trading hub. Different people from around the world go to Hong Kong to trade. They go there to buy goods, finished goods produced in China, of which Chinese cannot come to Hong Kong to sell, but